Chapter 617. When the fire is extinguished, the pursuers are in a hurry. Deep in the forest, the stove becomes a mystery. Where is the future? In a land of death, the wind blows without intention. Weak water continuously rushes against the embankment. When the time was up, Zhang Xiaobao immediately retreated and led his men to chase after Wang Wan. This young master, there are still people behind. There are still people behind. In the end, one of the 25 people caught by Zhang Xiaobao panted heavily as he chased after Zhang Xiaobao. He wanted this kid who could command others to wait a little longer. Zhang Xiaobao glanced at him and said, "I know there are still people. Not only are there missing soldiers, but there are also Tibetans chasing after us. I can't mess up the battle plan for a small group of people." 2 hours later, just 2 hours later, this person still tried to persuade him. He didn't know who this kid was, but he recognized the people who were waiting for them. The embroidered pattern on the chest of their clothes was from the logistics camp in Idyll, who had given them supplies along the way. He really didn't know how the people from the logistics camp ran to the front of the group. He just wanted the people from the logistics camp to save as many of his brothers as possible. Zhang Xiaobao closed his eyes and said decisively, "No, we can't wait even 15 minutes, let alone 2 hours. 2 hours is enough for tens of thousands of people to occupy the advantageous terrain. If you want to stay by yourself. Don't be a burden to the group. Besides, the order I received was to retreat within 24 hours. Military orders are absolute. Except for the weapons used, throw away all the bronze and iron in the armor. The first 5 camps will spread out to hunt and collect animal hides. The 6th to 11th camps will take turns to carry them. The 12th camp will collect the materials to start the fire. Start the operation." Wang Wan looked up at the sky and gave the order to the messenger. The orders were immediately carried out. Guitu and the others also understood the content of the orders. They had been trying to guess what the logistics camp was thinking, but they found themselves even more confused. Logically speaking, at this time, they should think of a way to escape to a place where the Tibetans couldn't find them, and then look for opportunities to do other things. Not only was it slow to carry another person on his back, it would also drain their energy. By the time the Tubo people caught up with them, they would have lost their chance to escape. Furthermore, they were getting further and further away from Jinchuan City. If they didn't go and fight, even if they failed this time, they should still escape to Pengzhou. The most infuriating thing was that they were ordered to throw away all of the armors. As long as there was copper or iron, they were not allowed to leave anything behind. How were they supposed to fight if they encountered the enemy? Money, it was all money. Before this, it wasn't from Wing Province. After discussing with each other for a while, without coming to a conclusion, Guitu couldn't help but shout to the person guarding them, "I want to see the person in charge of the logistics camp. I have urgent matters to discuss. You guys won't be able to handle it if you delay." Wang Wan was still studying the military map, hoping to find more inspiration from it to achieve her goals. The knowledge she had learned before could only be used as an aid and could not be used to form a doctrine. In the current situation, there was no opportunity to seek a direct confrontation with the enemy, so she could only rely on the word strange. If only these 12,000 people were the ones that I and Xiaobao had trained for 3 years, or even 2 years, it would be much easier to use them than now. Wang Wan rubbed her eyes and longingly muttered to herself. When the person came to report that Guitu wanted to see her, she muttered, "What is there to see? What urgent matters? Could it be that he still has heavenly soldiers that he hasn't taken out yet? I want to see the person in your team who really came up with the idea, not a little girl like you." Guitu stared at Wang Wan, who had rushed over in a hurry. Wang Wan curled her lips and said, "I am. Tell me, what is it? Hurry up, don't waste my time." "Okay, then I will tell you. You go back and tell the person who came up with the idea that all of his ideas are bad. If this continues, no one in the entire army will be able to escape. This mission is to attack Jinchuan. Since you have seized the power, you have to follow this plan." Guitu suppressed the anger in his heart and said to Wang Wan word by word. Wang Wan burst out laughing and said, "Forget it, attack Jinchuan. The order you received should be to find a chance to attack Jinchuan. The most important mission is to launch a surprise attack and do your best to anger the Tubo people and burn a large amount of Tubo's autumn harvest grain. Do you think the imperial court is a fool to send 15,000 people to attack Jinchuan? Don't give me orders and ideas. When a general is outside, you can't accept military orders. Your idea is good. You made the team to this point. If you want to be a benevolent and righteous general and not kill people, then you have to bear the consequences of your actions. Stupid, you're playing around with the lives of the soldiers. You a little girl like you actually dared to piss me off. Guatu pointed at Wang Wan, and his face turned red. What do you mean? You want to be a general like this? How many exercises have you participated in? How many red and blue army experiences have you had? Do you really think that you are an invincible general just because you won on the sand table? With 12,000 people defending the mountain, can't you win a victory that raises the morale of the soldiers? Run, run. You only know how to run. You ran until the soldiers ran out of strength and morale. I know that you want to leave the battlefield first and then find a chance to fight back. The essence of mobile warfare is not to escape, but to mobilize the enemy's superior forces and find a chance to destroy them one by one. When we go back, I suggest that you go to the game room of the flagship store between the clouds and the water in Sanshui County to learn. Wang Long was also angry. She and Xiao Bao had spent so much money, but Guatu had wasted it and even wanted to criticize them. Guatu was speechless for a long time. She was not wrong, but other than not killing the civilians, the other aspect were just bad luck. It was not that he was not good at commanding. He had been praised by General Gao, but now he was being scolded by a little girl. The staff at the side had to protect their interests, so he interrupted and said, "Cuckoo, then you have to tell us the purpose of marching like this. What is the use of people carrying people? Are you waiting to defeat the enemy? If I don't tell you, don't think about continuing to participate in the command during the time when your military power was taken away and I safely returned to Yingzhou. I will tell you a little. Who said that carrying people is useless? At least it can exercise the lung capacity a little. It has a little effect, so as to avoid more accidents in the operation the day after tomorrow." After saying this, Wang Wan walked to the place where she was just now. After walking for about 10 steps, she said without looking back, "Stay here obediently. If anyone wants to make trouble, I don't mind killing a few of them to show the monkeys. I believe that the emperor will not trouble me. If you don't believe me, you can try." I'm so angry. This little girl is too much. Wait for me to go back. Wait for me to go back. I will wait for me to go back. Guatu shouted until he couldn't see Wang Wan's figure. Just now he didn't dare to, for he was really afraid that the little girl would kill him. He kept saying that he would wait for him to go back, but he didn't say what he would do when he went back. It seemed that he couldn't do anything. The key was whether he could go back alive. Wang Wan returned to her place and continued to study the tactics. The soldiers who were supposed to hunted, carried people on their backs, and collected flammable things. The morale of the army under Wang Wan's control was not bad at this time. It was not because of her charm. She was a little girl, but she had no charm. The key was her promise. With the financial power of between the clouds and the water as the foundation, she gave the soldiers hope. One day later, the operation of carrying people on their backs stopped. They collected a lot of beast fur. Regardless of whether it had been needed or not, it still smelled of blood. She asked people to sew simple coats and leather bags with the intestines of the beasts using simple needles made of branches. Because the speed of the march was affected by carrying people back and forth, Zhang Xiaobao caught up with them in the evening. Wang Wan ordered everyone to rest. After eating wild vegetables and animal meat, she only asked everyone to leave a piece of compressed biscuit. Except for the people who were on guard, everyone went to sleep. After a long journey, the two pigeons finally flew back to their home in the capital from Idyll. They were taken from their claws. After eating something hurriedly, they cooed and went to rest. Gao Lishur, who was the chamberlain, hurried to Xingqing Palace with the things sent by the person who received the letter. At this time, Li Longji was enjoying the singing and dancing of the concubines while working. He had not decided which woman to accompany him tonight. The women were also trying their best to show off, hoping to be favored tonight. Li Longji, who had just called out "good" twice, saw Gao Lishur's expression and knew that something had happened. He hurriedly dismissed the women and called Gao Lishur over. Lishur, is there something urgent? Li Longji looked at Gao Lishur and asked. Pengzhou's fast horses have not yet arrived. Izhou's Yao Chong and Bai Shu's flying pigeons arrived first. Guitu could not bear to kill on the way and exposed his tracks. His provisions were robbed. He was defeated and retreated to Dachuan. Gao Lishur said to Li Longji, defeated? Did Pengzhou have provisions to escort? Li Longji did not expect Guitu to be defeated before even reaching his destination. His expression could not help but turn ugly. He then asked about the provisions in Pengzhou. He meant to send people to deliver provisions to Guo Tuesday. Pengzhou has sufficient provisions, but no one dares to send troops privately. Coincidentally, His Majesty's decree was sent to Pengzhou and received by the logistics camp in Idyll. They reorganized their troops overnight and left to reinforce. Their whereabouts are unknown. In addition, Zhang Zhong's eldest son, Xiaobao, and Cuckoo are traveling with the troops to assume command. Gao Lishur's tone changed slightly when he said this. He also liked Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. From Bai Shu and Yao Chang's letters, he often learned about the two little fellows. Not only were they beautiful, but they were also smart and eager to learn. They were filial to their elders and were well educated. They were also good at cooking and often cooked for their family and Bai Shu. Gao Lishur could not have children himself, so he liked other people's children. If possible, he really wanted to make Zhang Xiaobao his own child. When he received the news this time, he could not help but worry about the two little fellows. Li Longji also became nervous and asked, how many people did they bring? The Zhang family's protection team has 56 people. Bai Shu and Yao Chang's combined protection team has 100 people. Prince Tang's protection team has 200 people, and the rest are ordinary people escorting provisions. This trip is very dangerous. Gao Lishur replied. That was all that was mentioned in the letter he received. Li Longji also knew that it was dangerous. What could 300 people do? He could not help but complain to Gao Lishur. Why are the Zhang families so stupid? Look at other families. Which family doesn't have a large number of guards? They make a lot of money. When it's time to use people, they have 56. Chapter 618. Li Longji's plan was to first send troops over to launch a surprise attack, and then burn a portion of the grain that was about to be harvested in autumn. Tubo requested peace every year and attacked the borders every year. When they requested peace, they actually used the attitude of a victorious country. Naturally, they wouldn't allow Great Tang to give them anything. Taking advantage of the fact that the Zhang family was able to popularize the seeds in Great Tang and had the method of hatching chicks and thermometers, they would be able to produce a lot of grain next year. This autumn, when Tubo retaliated and attacked, Great Tang would have finished harvesting the grain in many places. They wouldn't have to worry about not having enough grain to fight a war. Using the method of fighting a big war to make the people of Great Tang work hard to support the borders. The method of support was to learn how to plant seeds and use war to stimulate that thing called domestic demand and promote the development of productivity. Li Longji learned this from Bai Go's letter. He felt that if it was successful, it could also be used to train the soldiers. After 2 years, when Great Tang had more grain, poultry, and livestock, they could use it to expand their territory. However, he didn't expect that the usually smart and capable Guitu would make such an idiotic mistake. Yes, he was an idiot. If he made a mistake, he should just die there. He even implicated Xiaobao and Cuckoo. Xiaobao and Cuckoo were the personal disciples of the two experts of the Zhang family who didn't show themselves. It was said that the two little fellows were able to pass the imperial examination. How capable were they? If the experts weren't willing to show themselves, then so be it. Wouldn't it be fine if the two little fellows learned their skills? The two little fellows couldn't possibly hide and not show themselves, right? Regardless of whether it was for their own use or for their children or grandchildren, it would be fine. Now, that the two little fellows had come out of seclusion and brought more than 300 people who could fight, would they be able to come back alive? If they were really unlucky, where could they find 2 such people? Who knew how long the experts of the Zhang family could live? More importantly, The 4 children of the Zhang family were indeed stronger than ordinary people, but they were far inferior to Xiao Bao and Cuckoo. The more Li Longji thought about it, the more fearful and angry he became. He had even told the Zhang family to visit Xiao Bao and Cuckoo when they returned to the capital after finishing their business in Idyll. Now that their lives were at stake, if it was possible, he really wanted to bite Guitu to death. Let the 2 children bear the consequences of their own actions. Of course, Li Longji didn't want to talk about it, nor did want to think about the fact that he had sent out a decree to give Zhang Zhong credit. He could only hope that Xiao Bao and Cuckoo, the 2 future talents, would return safely. When the time came, he would immediately send out a decree to ask Zhang Zhong to take good care of the 2 children and not let them run around. If something happened, would Zhang Zhong be able to take responsibility? Xiao Bao and Cuckoo weren't his own children. How could he wait for them to grow up and do more things like experts? Li Shi, go and call Song Jing, Zhang Shuo, Zhang Jiuling, and the others who can discuss this matter. Let's see if there's anything we can do. Li Longji wasn't in the mood to let the concubines dance to liven things up. He had Gao Lishi call for people to discuss this matter. Gao Lishi hurriedly left. He was worried about Xiao Bao and Cuckoo. He was also preparing to find an opportunity to recognize a godson, or daughter-in-law. In any case, he just wanted to recognize a relative. He also wanted to take some time to enjoy the 2 children's cooking and take them for a stroll in the Imperial Gardens. Guitu didn't know that he had already been hated by someone, and it was a very powerful person. He continued to analyze what the logistics camp wanted to do with the general who was also under house arrest. This is too much. This is too much. They arrested us and didn't even tell us their purpose. Everyone, think about it. If we really escape, we won't be able to answer correctly if someone asks. Also, is this food for humans? Guitu complained as he ate the wild vegetable soup that didn't have any meat. If he didn't make such a big mistake this time and put the army in danger, he might continue to praise the logistics camp. However, it seemed that his psychological quality was not high enough. After encountering a setback, not only did he become absent-minded, but he also tried to push the blame from himself to others. The bad side of human nature was undoubtedly revealed, especially when he was under house arrest and did not know the purpose of the logistics camp. In fact, he really wanted to participate. Even if he could say a few words occasionally, it would be good to remind them. However, they didn't give him the chance at all. Facing the fear of the unknown, he finally exploded. The other generals didn't say anything and didn't complain about the food. In the current situation, it was very good to have stuttering food. Usually, when fighting for power, it was not as simple as house arrest. It was very normal to kill a few people. Even if they killed all of them, they could find an excuse. With the help of the former Prime Minister and the former Minister of Revenue, they couldn't do anything to the 2 kids. Seeing that his words didn't get the support of the others, Guitu hurriedly ate the wild vegetable and stared back and forth at the generals. Lu Jun finally couldn't stand being stared at like this. He sighed and said, "General, I think it's really possible to successfully escape back. Since the people who followed us couldn't understand, how could the Tubo people guess the intentions of the army? Eat. It looks like they're going to make a big move." As if to support Lu Jun's words, early the next morning, Wang Wan's new order was passed down. 10 battalions were to be close to the mountain. All the food that they collected was to be given to the 10 battalions. The remaining 2 battalions and the few hundred people who came back later were to continue forward. After 3 days, they would descend the mountain and be met by people there. Along the way, they were to reduce the number of stoves. Every 3 hours, they would burn the stoves. From 70,000 to 60,000, then to 50,000. After 2 days, the number of stoves would be back to 2,000. When they reached the front and descend the mountain, they would listen to the instructions of the people there. Another point was that when the 10 battalions continued to ascend the mountain, they would use flammable objects to create a thick smoke to obstruct the Tubo people's pursuit and erase their traces. After the order was passed down, Wang Wan and Zhang Xiaobao led the 10 battalions and set off. Guitu and the others continued to lead the 10 battalions. Otherwise, if the 2 battalions were to be handed over, it would be easy for them to take back their authority. You all don't want to live anymore. Do you know how cold it is on a mountain? All the food added up is only enough for 2 days. You all killed 10,000 people just like that. I want to see the person in charge. I want to see the person. When Guitu was being watched climbing up the mountain, he knew that they were preparing to ascend the mountain. He kept shouting and shouting. According to what he had learned, he had already come to a conclusion about the future of the group. The face of the bodyguard who was watching them darkened. He kicked Guitu from behind and said, "Behave yourself. What are you shouting for? If you shout again, I will chop you up. Let's see how many people are willing to offend Royal Prince Tang, and for a failed general." Royal Prince Tang and Royal Princely? What does he have to do with you? Guitu asked in surprise. He didn't dare to call Li Sun by his name. I am the personal bodyguard of His Royal Highness. His Royal Highness is a guest in Idyll and calls young Master Xiao Bao his younger brother. What do you think it is related to him? Li Sun's bodyguard replied in dissatisfaction. Guitu didn't say anything, and so did the other officers. Only now did they realize how big of a backer the 2 kids had. They were all killed, but when they went back, they could just find an excuse, and no one would cry out for them. After a long while, Guitu whispered to the bodyguard, "Xiao Bao and the others are wrong. Aren't you afraid that? Can they be more wrong than you? Shut up." The guards did not show him any respect at all. They knew the little young master and the little lady's abilities very well. They had seen it when they were in Luzhou. Then, they went to Shu province and then to Peng province. They learned from the 2 of them along the way. There were many tactical ideas that they had never thought of before they met the young master and the young lady. They were very good at analyzing human nature and terrain in various situations. However, they were not done yet. It seemed like there was more to come. Would such people make an unwise decision? After Zhang Xiao Bao and Wang Wan led 10 battalions up the mountain with more than 10,000 men, the 2 battalions below started to light the fire. Thick smoke drifted with the wind. It was only because of the wind today that Wang Wan made the decision. Otherwise, they would have to continue waiting. After the smoke was released, the 2 battalions cleaned up all the traces as much as possible. Then, they started to rush forward. 3 days later, they would go down the mountain and see if there were any reinforcements. The Tubo people were almost catching up, but they had to slow down. Their generals were also afraid of falling into an ambush. First, they observed the campsites. Day by day, they increased the number of campsites. They could not figure out what was going on. Could it be that reinforcements had arrived? Then they should be fighting with them. They only increased the number of campsites but did not fight. Were they trying to set up an ambush? There was no need to be afraid. They just had to be careful. It was easy to mobilize troops in their own territory. However, the problem was that from the footprints left behind, the number of people was not fixed. Sometimes there were more than 10,000 people. Sometimes there were more than 1,000 people. Sometimes there were more than 6,000 people. When there were fewer people, what did the people do? Did reinforcements come and follow them for a while and then hide? Or did the people in the army make some arrangements? There must be something wrong with increasing the number of people. As the saying goes, all is fair in war. To chase or not to chase, they had to wait for the reinforcements. This was not easy to handle. Tata Tatu was the leader of the 10,000 men in the headquarters. This time, he led 20,000 men. If it was in the past, he could have more men. He had 2 Yuhuan's men to help him. Now that he had no more men, he could only use his own men to fight. He thought of himself as a capable general. He was literate and had read a few military books. Usually, he led his own men to guard the front line of Jinchuan. He felt that he knew a lot about war, especially all kinds of strategies. He had memorized them. When he saw the situation in front of him, the first thing that came to his mind was that all is fair in war. As the saying goes, what is true is false, and what is false is true. However, he could not tell whether the other party was lying or not. If they wanted to lure the enemy by reducing the number of campsites, they should not have set up so many campsites. If they wanted to increase the number of campsites to scare the enemy, they should not have left behind footprints. From the footprints, there were at least 10,000 people. Sometimes, there were even fewer. Increasing the number of campsites when there were fewer people? Did they think that he could not tell, or were they doing it on purpose? This was troublesome. According to the scouts in Pingzhou, the general who came this time was a person called Guo Tuesday. He had never heard of this name before. Could he be a wise general of Tang? At this moment, there were only 5,000 people chasing in front of the headquarters. Should they chase quickly or be careful and slow? Should they send out all the scouts to increase the distance, or should they just charge forward without thinking? Chapter 619. Tadata was dumbfounded. He was really dumbfounded. He wanted to find the relevant information from the military books that he had read, but that was just a thought. In reality, there was nothing. To be able to use a strategy to such an extent, one must be a god. No, it was better to be safe. Otherwise, even if the Tang Empire only had 10,000 people, it would be easy for something to happen when they were starving. Yes, it was better to be safe. Now that there was no need to be afraid of them running away, what else could they do if they followed slowly? Thinking of this, Tadu ordered the troops behind to speed up while he sent out a large number of scouts. This was the bolder battle strategy that he had come up with himself. When he had more troops than the enemy, he would not be fooled by them. As soon as the order was sent out, the scouts in front reported that they had found a large number of armors neatly placed and tied with branches. From the footprints, there were about 10 to 15,000 people. There were many leftover bones of wild beasts and small pits where wild herbs were dug up. Armors? And they were tied up? Placed neatly? What does this mean? For me? The bones of wild beasts and the pits where wild herbs were dug up? Are we going to starve to death? The number of people did not change. Is it still the same as before? Tado suddenly had doubts about the bolder battle strategy that he had just decided to use. He did not know if the enemy was trying to scare him so that they would move forward lightly, or if they were trying to trick him so that they would have more time. The crux of the problem was whether to chase after them or not. This feeling was very uncomfortable. To be safe, Tado suppressed the urge to chase after them quickly and waited for the people behind to catch up. At the very least, there had to be more people than the Tang soldiers who had left their footsteps behind. The troops slowed down. Tao, who was still feeling uneasy, could only comfort himself that this was the right decision. Half a day later, on the morning of the next day, a total of 16,000 people had gathered. The remaining 4,000 people were responsible for escorting the supplies. With 16,000 people under his command, along the way, he only caught more than 100 people who were originally in charge of escorting the provisions. They were all good slaves who could be exchanged for many things when they returned. However, he did not see the main force of the Tang army. Just as at Tatatat once the smoke came out, the Tubo people started to feel uncomfortable. Not only did the smoke affect their eyes, but it also affected their breathing. They kept coughing and rubbing their eyes hard. Some even wanted to stick their heads into the ground to avoid the smoke. In the morning, the forest was already humid. In some places, the fog had yet to disperse. Once it was mixed with the smoke, the smell was extremely irresistible. Advance, pick up the pace, and rush over. Tatato ordered with reddened eyes. He really wanted to run back. He was afraid that he would be chased by the smoke while he was running. The people chasing him must have been prepared. At least they could cover their faces with wet cloth. When his troops were almost unable to see clearly because of the smoke, not to mention 16,000 people, even 61,000 people would not be able to defeat 10,000 people. The only way was to rush over. Once they reached the other side, they would be fine. Judging from the thick smoke, they should not be too far away. They could only face it head-on and could not retreat. The 16,000 troops rushed forward under his command. The further they went, the more uncomfortable they felt. Some people were smart enough to wet their clothes with their urine. Everyone followed suit. In the end, Tedo also used the water in his water bag to cover his mouth. However, the others did not dare to follow suit. If they ran out of water, they would have to go up the mountain to melt the snow. This would delay the progress of the troops. After a fierce dash, Tada finally led his men to the other side of the mountain. They went around the mountain slightly and rushed to the other side of the smoke. The fire was still burning and the smoke was still coming out. The entire troop was in tears. Their eyes were swollen like peaches. A scout came to report again. They had found traces of the enemy. Judging from the temperature of the stove, the enemy had left less than 2 hours ago. They seem to have left in a hurry. Go after them. Pay attention to the surroundings to avoid being ambushed, Tatato ordered. General, the footprints in front seem to belong to 2,000 people. We can't find the traces of 10,000 people, the scouts said worriedly. Go after them. Even if there are 1,000 people, we will still chase after them. Tui, the smoke is killing me. They had used binoculars to see the Tibetan troops pass by below. At that time, they were so scared that they broke out in a cold sweat. But in the end, they were not discovered. The enemy scouts were only a few dozen steps away from here. At that time, the people on their side were all lying on the ground, not daring to move at all. This was all thanks to the binoculars. Guitu looked at the binoculars in his hand and could not say anything against it. They had such a good thing, but they did not make full use of it. Look at the logistics camp. They used all of their resources. After advancing for another 2 hours, it was time for the troops to rest. Guitu and the other officers who usually practice martial arts did not have anything to do. Every one of them was very energetic. The officer took a pair of binoculars and looked down. He said to the other officers, "This is the true use of the clairvoyance. We can see the enemy, but the enemy can't see us. We can react first. This is a good thing. I hope that the commanders of the 3 camps who were escorting the provisions have smashed the clairvoyance in their hands when they met with danger. Otherwise, they would be condemned by history." The other officers nodded. Even Guitu did not refute. The clairvoyance was really too important. At this time, a battalion commander opened his mouth and said, "The clairvoyance seems to have been made by Provincial Governor Zhang, who was specially sent to gather provisions for us. Since it was made by him, he naturally knew when to use it. What I'm thinking about now is not the clairvoyance, but the people in charge of the logistics camp. Impressive, really too impressive. From the moment they took over the army, they had already started a plan. I put myself in the perspective of the Tibetans. If I were to lead the Tibetans in pursuit, what would my judgment be when I see the situation in front of us? The result would be that I would be stupid." Another battalion commander finished the sentence. When Guitu heard this, he also fell into deep thought. He thought of himself as the Tibetans in pursuit. In the end, he realized that he was also unable to judge what the Tang army wanted to do. If it was him, he would not know whether or not to continue advancing. He really could not think of how the logistics camp could have such a commander. He could not help but speak out his thoughts. If the logistics camp had such a commander, why would the imperial court send us here? They directly let the logistics camp be in charge of the provisions and command. It is better than us coming all the way here. Perhaps we would have already attacked the Tibetans. Chapter 620. Snow and ice, hidden sharpness, close at hand, thousands of hidden soldiers, gritting their teeth to endure the cold. Take off their clothes, bare their chests, engage in close combat, bravely advance, unstoppable in their pursuit. Wang did not expect that after the Tubo army went over, what followed was not the reserve soldiers who were there to reinforce the key points, but the grain escort team. If this was the case, she would be as stupid as Guitu's day. In fact, even Guitu knew that he had a fight now. 10,000 people against 4,000 people. If he did not dare to fight, then there was no need for him to lead an army. After discovering the Tubo people escorting the grain ahead of time, Wang immediately started to make arrangements. Everyone drank the last bit of wine, took off their clothes, and put them under their bodies. They lay on their stomachs and waited for the 4,000 people to come over. The people who took off their clothes were Guitu's original men. The people from the logistics camp were still wearing their clothes. They could not take them off as they would be the vanguard later. From the time the scouts discovered the 4,000 Tubo people until the Tubo people came, they waited for a full hour. In just 1 hour, more than 10,000 people lay on their stomachs, gritting their teeth and enduring the cold, all for the sake of launching a surprise attack. Listen to my orders. The logistics camp will attack first. The crossbowmen will follow and suppress them immediately. When the sword spear team charges, the crossbowmen will attack and push forward. If we win, we will have everything. Get ready. Wang Wan passed down the order one by one. She nervously took out her musket and tried to take a deep breath. This could be said to be the first real battle she commanded in this era. She could only succeed. Failure was not an option. The Tubo people who were escorting the provisions were also very careful along the way. They knew that the ones who were most vulnerable to attack were their own troops. Along the way, they looked around vigilantly as if there were enemies everywhere. There were even some people who would shoot arrows at places where people might be hiding every once in a while, as if they were beating the grass to scare the snake. When the 4,000 people were about to reach the ambush site, a few people in the team shot their arrows at the mountain. The others missed, but one arrow pierced into the shoulder of a Tang soldier. Puff! The soldier who was shot opened his mouth and bit his own arm. He opened his eyes wide and swallowed the scream that was about to come out. He let the arrow pierce into his body and did not make any extra movements. From Zhang Xiaobao's position, he could see the soldier. He secretly praised him and prepared to reward him when this matter was over. At this time, Guitu also held a saber. He knew that he had no chance to command, so he had to fight. No matter what, he had to kill a few people to absolve himself of the blame. Even if he died in battle, he had to fight. The Tubo archers' ears were not at the level where they could hear what the arrow hit from dozens of steps away. After they finished their routine shooting, they no longer paid attention to that area and followed the group to continue forward. Kill! Seeing that the enemy had already arrived at the preset location, Wang Wan pulled the trigger and the flint ignited. With a shout, she fired a shot at the enemy below. With the sound of the command, countless disposable rocket launchers with long trails of smoke flew down from the mountain and exploded in the crowd. Amidst the rumbling sounds, bows and crossbows were fired at the same time, catching the people who had been vigilant. Kill! The people with sabers and spears rushed over under the leadership of the logistics camp. The Tubo people who were frightened by the explosion quickly divided into groups and wanted to organize people to face the enemy. The people from the logistics camp were the first to come into contact with the enemy. When they were 20 steps away, they took out their guns and shot randomly. The Tubo people who wanted to face the enemy immediately fell. When they were 10 steps away, another group of people was killed. The people from the protection team held a slow match in one hand and threw grenades into the crowd with the other. The Tubo people were not lacking in bravery, but they had never seen such a weapon before. They were beaten silly in just a single exchange. The rumbling sounds were like thunder. Countless topless people ran down from the mountain, holding broadswords or spears in their hands. They were shouting loudly as they charged towards the Tubo people. In just a short moment, 500 to 600 Tubo people were killed. When they realized that it was the Tang army, it was too late to fight back. The Tang soldiers who did not have anything to protect themselves had already lost the idea of dodging and fighting back. There was only one thought in their mind, which was to attack and attack again. Zhang Xiaobao held a gun and stood beside Wang Wan to protect her. He vigilantly observed the situation on the battlefield to prevent Wang Wan from being hit by the stray arrows. Blow the signal to the logistics camp. The first camp to the left, the second camp to penetrate the enemy. The crossbowmen are free to scatter. The strong archers are ready. The scouts are to look for the enemy commander and kill him. The seventh camp move out. Don't care about the battle. Go to the back of the enemy. Quick, start running. The eighth camp, support the middle. Don't fight too long. Quickly split up and surround the enemy. Fire the remaining 10 camps. Fire the remaining 10 camps. As Wang Wan passed down her orders, all kinds of bugles sounded in the sky above the battlefield. Other than the 9th camp that stayed by Wang Wan's side, the remaining 9 camps had all entered the battlefield. Wang Wan held the binoculars and gave orders from time to time. She was in charge of the overall situation. Order the 4th camp to retreat, the 5th camp to the right. The crossbowmen are to abandon their bows and engage in close combat. Reinforce the 4th camp. The scouts are to coordinate with the strong archers to kill the enemy's valiant soldiers. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd teams of the 9th camp are to press forward with their spears. Pull the formation horizontally and stabilize. The Tibetan soldiers on the battlefield had already lost their commander and were fighting for themselves. As Wang Wan passed down her orders, the 3 teams of the 9th camp, which had close to 600 people, pulled the formation horizontally and stepped forward with their spears. They allowed the people who wanted to be the last to fight to the death to charge forward without breaking the formation. They gave people the feeling that they were as immovable as a mountain, suppressing the enemy in terms of momentum. Under Wang Wan's command from above, the Tubo soldiers were quickly separated and surrounded in panic. The Tubo soldiers, who were already small in number, were ambushed and could only run around randomly. It was as if they were surrounded by enemies. For the first time, those who were wearing armor realized that armor was a burden in a battle in the mountains and jungles. The people who were standing on the flat ground were better off. The Tibetan soldiers who were fighting on the slanted ground had to maintain their balance. There were people attacking them from all directions, making it impossible for them to coordinate with their own people. Those who can speak the Tibetan language shout out. Those who surrender will be spared. Seeing that the battle had become one-sided, Wang Wan heaved a sigh of relief. Following the shouts, the Tibetan soldiers who had already lost their will to fight threw away the weapons in their hands and knelt down to surrender. The remaining people were also killed one after another under the siege of the Tibetan soldiers. The ambush lasted for more than half an hour from the beginning to the end. All of the Tibetan commanders were shot to death. After counting the number of people, out of the 4,000 Tibetan soldiers, 1,000 had surrendered. There were also more than 600 Tang soldiers who had sacrificed their precious lives and could not return to their homeland. Those who were injured, bandage your wounds and bring your clothes back to wear. Take 10 days' worth of food from the Tibetan army provisions and burn the rest. Tie up the surrendered Tibetan soldiers and listen to my orders. Kill them. After the battle, Wang Wan began to prepare. When most of the things were done, he started to kill the 1,000 Tibetan soldiers who had surrendered. He did not take any prisoners. The Tibetan soldiers who knew their fate began to curse the Tang soldiers who did not keep their words. When they surrendered, they said that they would not kill them. In the end, they were unable to escape death. The Tang soldiers did not care about how the Tibetan soldiers scolded them. Once the military order was given, they swung their swords and chopped. They allowed the enemy's blood to spray on their bodies as they felt warm. Remember the names of the soldiers who died in the battle and retreat with me. It was impossible for Wang Wan to take the prisoners, let alone the corpses of the dead soldiers. He could only leave them on the mountain and become food for the wild beasts or the target of the Tibetan soldiers to vent their anger on. The soldiers in the army that had less than 10,000 people put on their clothes and took 10 days' worth of food before disappearing into the mountain. They only left behind a ground full of blood and corpses, as well as thick smoke from the burning of the provisions. The soldiers who were tired from winning the battle retreated at lightning speed. They were willing to obey Wang Wan's orders from the bottom of their hearts. Whoever could lead them to victory would be able to gain their respect. Guitu and the other officers were also watched as they moved with the army. They were quite lucky as none of them died. They even killed quite a number of Tibetan soldiers. This might have something to do with their usual practice of martial arts. Guitu might have made a mistake in his previous command, but his fighting skills were not weak. He alone killed 6 Tibetan soldiers. His sword was broken and his body was covered in blood. He did not know who stabbed him on the right side of his chest. The tip of the spear went in by more than an inch. He casually bandaged the wound and did not complain even when the blood soaked the bandage. He was very quiet as he moved with the army. Occasionally, he would look at Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan with a different gaze. Some of the officers finally knew that the real commander of the logistics camp was the little girl, Wang Wan. All the orders came from her mouth. The evaluation they gave her in their hearts was that she was ruthless, decisive, and flawless in her command. Her grasp of the situation on the battlefield had reached an unbelievable level. When the battle was at its most chaotic, she was actually able to command the troops in groups. Each group in the reinforced camp had close to 200 people, and each group had 4 groups. In other words, this little girl was able to command a small group of 50 people to attack, defend, divide, weave, cover, and surround. She was able to make countless soldiers and groups work together on the battlefield. The sound of horns, drums, and the constantly changing flags never stopped during the battle just now. When the officers were frightened by Wang Wan, they could not help but think, where did this little girl come from? Who taught her? Chapter 6:21. At this moment, Zhang Xiaobao was still feeling regretful. If only he could bring back the corpses of the soldiers and bring back the captives to work as slaves. There were more than 1,000 people. Whether it was farming, mining, or building roads, they would be a great help. Unfortunately, it was impossible to bring them back. Cuckoo, I've realized that our one-time use rocket launchers aren't very useful. Other than scaring people, they can't kill many people. Especially when the nails inside are shot at people wearing armor, they are easily blocked. It's the same for the grenades. Some of them can only emit thick smoke. It's not like they're playing with flowers. The muskets aren't easy to use either. After firing a shot, there's no time to reload. All that fly out are iron balls. If they hit the enemy's face, it's fine. If they hit the enemy's body, they can still continue to fight. When they hit the armor, they make clanking sounds, just like a music box. Zhang Xiaobao began to make a post-battle summary. Due to the lack of technology, the use of firearms had been reduced by a lot. Wang Wan couldn't do anything about it, unless they could continue to improve it. However, she was still satisfied. She said, "It's actually very good to be able to scare people, especially when facing the enemy's cavalry. When they are frightened by the sound of the explosion, the horses can't take it. When we have cavalry, we can let the horses hear the sound of the explosion every day. After they get used to it, it'll be very useful when facing the enemy." While the two of them were discussing the use of the new weapons, Guitu and the others also thought of the weapons used by the logistics camp at the beginning. The rumbling sounds were quite spectacular. There were also those small gadgets in their hands that could hit people's faces or people who weren't wearing armor. With a single sweep, it would cause a large number of injuries. Rich people are really different. Where did the Zhang family get such good things? Also, there's the sleeve arrows. Those who came face to face with them at the beginning didn't even have a chance to attack. They were shot down from afar. They didn't even have to wear leather armor. They were all shot through. Join Army said enviously. He thought that if every one of the 10,000 people was equipped with that kind of equipment, there would be no need to worry about death when facing 10,000 people. Even if there were casualties, it would be very, very small. They would be hit by throwing weapons and long-range weapons. The other generals also knew that the weapon was good, but they didn't have the money to equip it. No wonder they didn't agree when they wanted to take over their people. It was all because of money. They had a lot of miscellaneous items on them, and the materials used to forge weapons were different. When someone's broadsword struck, it could cut through the other party's weapon. While Guitu was also envious, he was thinking more about how Wang Wan's commanding skills came about. The little girl actually had such skills. No wonder she was sent here to help. It seemed that the military power couldn't be taken back before they went back. While he was thinking about this, Guitu suddenly stopped and carefully looked at the surrounding scenery. He said to the general beside him, "What do you think they're going to do? From the looks of it, it looks like we're going down the mountain. But there are Tubo cavalry patrolling at the foot of the mountain. Otherwise, I would have brought people down long ago." All the generals shook their heads. They didn't want to guess what the logistics camp's people were going to do. In the afternoon, the troops suddenly changed direction and went in the direction of the 2,000 people escaping. Without the burden of armor, they put on leggings and hurried. "Don't tell me they want to go down the mountain and go up the mountain again?" Guitu asked in surprise when he saw the troops change direction. This was too risky. They had just gone down the mountain, and now they wanted to go back. They were too bold. Were they afraid that the other party wouldn't be able to find them? "Quick, quick, keep up. Those who are injured, walk slowly at the back. Don't worry. Those who can still fight, run forward." Wang Wan didn't forget to urge the troops when she walked with the troops. Zhang Xiaobao also followed beside Wang Wan. He also didn't understand Wang Wan's plan. He asked while running, "Where are you going to take the troops?" "Of course it's going to the battlefield. If the army doesn't go to war, do you think it's going to be farming? I'm betting that the other party will give us a chance." Wang Wan wiped her sweat and said to Zhang Xiaobao. Then she didn't say anything. She had to conserve her energy as much as possible. She couldn't let others carry her while running. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's speed was not slower than the adults. The logistics camp's people were already used to the young master and young ladies' inhuman abilities, but the people Guitu brought had never seen before. The people who were running next to them looked at Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan with a complicated expression. It was these two brats who had infiltrated deep into Tubo and delivered a few days' worth of supplies to them. It was also these two brats who had taken over the military authority and led them to boldly infiltrate and successfully ambush Tubo's logistics team. The little lass's superb command had saved a lot of lives on their side. Who would have thought that when they were forced to march, they didn't need anyone's help at all? They could run at the same speed. Beautiful faces, cute smiles, decisive thoughts, ruthless methods, and unswerving character actually appeared in these two children. This was the son of Governor Zhang Zhong, who was very good at making money. How did he give birth to his son? How did he raise him? Normally, a child of his age would be so tired that he would cry for his mother after running for such a long time in the mountains, let alone being able to lead the support of the logistics camp and command the army. If the two kids could do this, it would be embarrassing if he couldn't keep up. The opportunity that Wang Wan wanted was given to her by Tutu. When a scout returned and told him what happened, at all 4,000 were dead. Even the provisions were burned. Did the Tang army do this? The scout who came back to report nodded and replied carefully, "Yes, I saw the corpses of the Tang army. There were about 600 of them. The rest were all corpses of our soldiers." The blood flowed like a river. After looking for traces, they rushed down from the mountains. They should be on the opposite side of us. They killed 4,000 people at the cost of 600? When did the Tang army become so powerful? Could it be the elite Tang army of Mo, Dao, Chengwei? Tu muttered the death count of both sides and trembled. He knew what the most powerful team of the Tang army was. The Mo, Dao, Chengwei was not a battalion, but a battalion was invincible. After he finished speaking, he shook his head. It was impossible. The strength of the Mo, Dao, Chengwei was that their long swords were like a forest, advancing steadily. They could not play their role in the mountains. They were suitable for fighting against cavalry on the plains. When they held their swords and made a sudden movement, no one could stop them. But when they were on the mountains, they were waiting for death. He thought about the scouts' words again and suddenly said, "I understand." Their actions in front deliberately made our army suspicious so that they did not dare to rush up to kill. If I had rushed up at that time, it seemed that both sides would have suffered losses, or they would have thought of ways to continue to escape. If they had released smoke again, it seemed that I would not have gained any advantage. They did not want to kill too many people. Smoke, smoke, I see. The smoke was not to smoke our army, but to cover them going up the mountain. In this case, the 2,000 people running in front were really 2,000 people. Their main force passed by us on the mountain and ambushed our logistics. Tatayatu had figured it out, but he also knew that it would not make any difference to the outcome. However, he still felt that something was not right. If Guitu was really that powerful, how could his logistics team have been defeated by him? How could such a commander make such a mistake? Who was it? Who was the commander of the Tang army? Just as Tatatu was trying to figure out the opponent, a team of scouts came from the foot of the mountain. They belonged to another Tubo team. They came to report, and at the same time, asked about the situation here. After the people came down the mountain and reported the recent situation, Hadu exclaimed, "What? The people's villages that led to here were all massacred? Pengzhou sent a logistics camp to support Guitu? The reason why Guitu's team was able to arrive here so quickly in such an environment was because of this logistics camp?" The people who came over said the recent news. They had spies in Pengzhou. When Guitu came out, the spies did not have time to react. When Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan led the logistics camp out, the spies could not delay any longer. But Pengzhou cooperated with Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan to seal the entrance. It was not easy for the spies to get the news out. At this time, the villages that were massacred were also discovered by the Tubo people. When the two sides were connected, they immediately knew who did it. The logistics camp in Idyll, the Zhang family of Between the Clouds and the Water in Sanshui County. They were the ones who ruined a big plan on their side. Now, they appeared again. After thinking about how Zhang Zhong was demoted to be the provincial governor and how the Zhang family bought a lot of food here and organized a team of mules, they understood the situation better. It turned out that they did not want to be discovered and let the Zhang family collect the food. At first, when they knew that Zhang Zhong was demoted, they were happy. Now, they knew that he did not lose favor, but was put in the most important place to deal with them. The Zhang family's team was the last trump card of the Tang army. Damn it. No wonder I always felt that something was wrong. It turned out that the people were changed. Thinking about it, how could Guatu have the guts to fight against me? How could he set up a puzzle that made people not dare move? In this case, the person who is commanding the Tang army now is the Zhang family. Damn it, the most powerful person was put in the logistics camp. I can't blame myself for losing this game. I don't know my enemy well. Tatatayatu felt much better. After all, losing to a person who couldn't even protect the provisions was two different things from losing to a person who had ruined the plan of Tufan. After explaining the situation here to the messenger, he asked the messenger to go back and tell the army at the foot of the mountain to cooperate with the search for the main force of the encirclement of the Tang army. He thought that he had lost this round because he had underestimated his opponent and didn't know that his opponent was going to drop. But now that he was taking it seriously, it was different. Pass on my order. 3,000 people will continue to pursue the 2,000 Tang deserters. The rest will follow me back to pursue the main force of the Tang army. The troops split up at once. The 13,000 men left quickly under Tatata's lead. He thought that the Tang army must have gotten some supplies after the sneak attack. They wanted to leave the battlefield quickly and go back to Pingzhou. He would be able to chase after them from behind. As for the 2,000 men who helped to hide their tracks and release smoke, they probably did not have any supplies left. If the 3,000 men chased after them, they would be exhausted and could win. 3 hours after Pada chased after them, the 3,000 Tibetan soldiers who were following behind the 2,000 Tang soldiers gave Wang Wan a chance when they were resting at night. When the people who escaped found Fetu the next afternoon, the main force of the Tang army had disappeared in the vast Jinchuan. There were 2,500 to 600 Tibetan corpses left at the place where they disappeared. Teo, who wanted to chase after the Tang army, was so scared that he didn't know if he should continue to chase after them from behind the mountain. He only had 13,000 men now, and the Tang army had lost less than 1,000 men in 2 battles. The difference in the number of men was not too big. Moreover, the Tang army had a ghostly commander. If he chased after them, he might even kill himself. But if he didn't chase after them, he would lose 7,000 men for nothing. He wouldn't have a good time even if he went back. I'll send a message to ask for reinforcements. I'll fight with the main force of the Tang army. If I lose my men, I'll give the credit to the reinforcements. Tadata finally made up his mind to fight with the main force of the Tang army. Even if his men were to be destroyed and only the reinforcements came from behind, it would be considered his contribution. That night, Tata's men waited for the reinforcements from the troops at the foot of the mountain. They set off in the night and chased after the main force of the Tang army. A group of men below also issued orders for the 3 10,000-man teams to send 2,000 men each to go up the mountain as reinforcements. It would be best if they could hurry up and catch up with Tatata's team. 2 days later, who still hadn't found the main force of the Tang army, received new news. The 3 reinforcements were defeated by the main force of the Tang army one by one. The location was where the first 4,000 men were killed. At the same time, Tadata knew where the main force of the Tang army was. How'd it go? It turned out that it passed by his troops on a mountain and went around in a big circle. Furthermore, it went down the mountain and ambushed a 1,000-man team that was escorting the provisions here. Then it disappeared again. Logistics camp, Idyll logistics camp, Zhangzhong, between the clouds and the water. Tada didn't lead his troops to chase after them again. He was afraid that something would go wrong if he chased after them. He was especially afraid that the Tang army would always play the game of going up and down. How could he find them in such a vast river? He had to think about it carefully. He didn't want to be confused by others. So he just lay in the camp and looked at the stars in the night sky. While tat-a-tat-tat-a-tat, the last 3 ambushes were well done. Nearly 10,000 men attacked 2,000 people who let down their guard each time. After killing 3 teams in a row, there were only slightly more than 9,000 people left. Wang Wan didn't expect to be able to kill 3 teams. He planned to come back and have a good rest before thinking about the next move. However, the scouts found the people on the mountain ahead of time. Zhang Yu and the others had learned this before, so they didn't need to learn it again. Although every time she talked about the same content, Wang Wan would add new things she summed up. Guitu and the other generals who were under house arrest were also allowed to listen. The more they listened, the more frightened they were. The more they listened, the more afraid they were of Wang Wan. Especially when Wang Wan was talking about her mentality in these few battles, she was very honest about her fear, hesitation, and gambling-like emotions in her heart, and made corresponding criticisms, opinions, and suggestions for her own behavior. This kind of mentality that faced one's own weakness was the most admirable. Which ordinary person would tell such a thing to others and criticize it so mercilessly? As long as I win, I'll be the most powerful. But this little girl could face it bravely, dared to bear her own responsibilities, and could wake up at any time and correct her mistakes at any time. In the hearts of Guitu and the other generals, a new generation of famous generals was slowly rising. Such a serious attitude and so many strategic and tactical thoughts were all concentrated on the little girl. Such a person would not be doubted even if he won 100 battles. He had no weaknesses. If one were to say that this little girl's adventurous command could be seen in the past few days of operations, then the content of her current lecture was to tell people to try their best not to think about taking risks unless there was no other choice. If they could defeat the enemy in a direct battle, then they should not always think about how to take advantage of the situation. That kind of victory would not last long, and that kind of general would not be qualified. After the lecture, when Wang Wan and Zhang Xiaobao went to guide Zhang Yu's team, Guitu and the others didn't want to rest at all. They had been attracted by the content of Wang Wan and Zhang Xiaobao's lectures in the class, and were comprehending it through a comprehensive study, hoping that they could be as powerful as them in the future. No wonder His Majesty transferred Zhong to Yingzhou. It turns out that this is his plan. I will never forget in my life that there's a place called Yingzhou where a logistics camp once appeared. In the name of logistics, they reinforced the front line and won many battles. People had to look up to them. 2 little guys casually sent there could lead the troops to victory. Their foundation was so profound that no one could compare with it. When Shinjun thought about it, he looked up at the sky and sighed with emotion. No one refuted him. They all lowered their heads and pondered, or looked up at the stars and the moon, as if the mysterious starry sky was the little girl. When I go back, I won't talk about my sand table practice with others anymore. Don't mention it, either. I'll fall out with whoever mentions it. That's scolding me. When I go back, I'll go to the game room between the clouds and the water in Sanshui County and play war games with them. Who taught the little girl? Guitu also spoke. He was beaten by Wang Wan and lost confidence. Looking at the things she taught in the class, he had never touched them before. Every time she talked about a place, she would take out the specific situation of the previous war to prove it, making the profound content easy to understand. What did this mean? This showed that the little girl had already learned this kind of strategy and tactics well. If he had half the ability of the little girl before he met the little girl, he would also proudly face all the opponents. It was impossible for him to criticize himself like the little girl and take out his own shortcomings to be used as a teaching material for others. If what she said in the class was her shortcomings, then this kind of attitude was her merits. She was modest, eager to learn, and could summarize at any time. When a victorious general could put down his pride and self-criticism, it was hard for him not to succeed. Shun Jun said at this time, "In fact, there is one more thing that is more important. That is, the things that the Zhang family figured out are like fireworks, but more powerful than fireworks. Also, they didn't talk about their training methods. Look at the people sent by the logistics camp. I don't believe that Commandery Prince Tang can train such elites. If it was really because of Commandery Prince Tang and his people wouldn't trust the little girl so much. Chapter 622. Guitu and the others couldn't sleep, so they gathered together to discuss the next step of the march. It would be difficult to return directly or take a detour without the support of the people from Pingzhou. They thought that the Zhang family was very powerful, so the 2 kids they sent were also very powerful. However, they didn't know who the Zhang family sent this time were. They were the lifeblood of the Zhang family and Wang family. They still wanted to learn from the same teacher. When it was almost dawn, Wang Wan ordered the troops to set off. She couldn't wait until dawn, as it would be easy to be discovered. She wasn't prepared to achieve any kind of victory immediately. If she deliberately took risks for the sake of victory, the troops would encounter unexpected situations. It was better to lower her mentality. What she wanted to do was completely different from what Guitu and the others had guessed. Guitu and the others' biggest wish was to return. As long as they could bring 10,000 people back and kill so many Tubo people, they would be victorious. How could Wang Wan be satisfied? She finally had the opportunity to command, and she felt sorry for herself if she didn't use it to her satisfaction. 10,000 people for her to command wasn't a small number. In the past, during the red and blue battles, she had only commanded 5,000 people at most. Of course, the 5,000 people at that time were harder to command than the 10,000 people now. The opponents were also not comparable to the current Tetedu. When there was a satellite signal connection, the experts could make full use of every flashing symbol on the soldiers. She could be one of the top few in her school, but when it came to a battle with a really powerful instructor, she was nothing. She didn't know what those people were thinking. Although she had always been praised as a genius, she knew that being a genius was useless. In a real battle, would the opponent send a 20-year-old opponent to you just because you were 20 years old? Now, she could finally combine the knowledge she learned in the past with the things she knew now. She wanted to see what could be done with 10,000 people. Wang Wan's troops carried the wounded and continued to march. She needed to catch up with the 2,000 people in front of her and cooperate with the people from the logistics camp before she could continue to make other arrangements. Otherwise, she wouldn't dare to fight Teta's 10,000 people head-on. Even if she could, she wouldn't do it. That was equivalent to sacrificing 800 of her own men to kill 1,000 of the enemy. Tata woke up after a night's sleep. Before he went to sleep, he was also thinking about what the Tang army was going to do and what their next step would be. He couldn't figure out even after he fell asleep. He even had a dream that his team was surrounded by the Tang army. The commander was an old man. He looked good when he smiled, but when he killed his own people, he showed no mercy at all. In fact, he was awakened by the scene in his dream. He opened his eyes in a daze. When he saw that it was dawn, he let out a sigh of relief. He wasn't so scared anymore. His clothes were wet from the cold sweat he had gotten from the night before. It was very uncomfortable. After hurriedly eating something, he suddenly felt very relaxed. 6,000 people had been dealt with, so even if he went back, he should not be punished. The other party was indeed powerful, and was not someone he could compare to. General, what else do we need to do? After serving Atatata frowned. He didn't know what to do. It was obvious that the main force of the Tang army was not here. Should he lead his men to chase after the 2,000 Tang soldiers? Not to mention whether they could catch up with them. Even if they were lucky enough to catch up with them, they would have rested enough. His men were tired from the journey. If they rushed over and killed all 2,000 of them, he would lose at least 4,000 men. He didn't know what the Tang army's clairvoyance was. It seemed that they could always find his men in advance and then set up a trap. He had interrogated the Tang soldiers who were escorting the provisions, but the general did not manage to catch them and committed suicide. In the end, he got a piece of news that was the general of the Tang army and above had something called clairvoyance. What was a clairvoyance? From the broken thing at the feet of the Tang army's battalion commander, he knew that there was such a thing. However, he didn't know how it could be seen so far away. He thought that there was no place to sell it, even if he wanted to. How could he let people from other countries know about it? The clairvoyance was also made by the Zhang family. Zhang family, Zhang family. Damn it, why did the Zhang family of Sanshui County always make trouble? General, The messenger saw that the general didn't speak for a long time, so he asked again. Tarata trembled and came out his thoughts. He thought for a while and said, "Let the troops continue to move forward. Don't worry. Send out the scouts." "Yes, scouts. We can only use the method of sacrificing scouts to avoid the ambush of the main force of the Tang army. Tell the scouts to go as far away as possible from today onwards. They must come back every 2 hours. Otherwise, they will be ambushed. Hurry up and go. Sigh, if we send out scouts like this, we will suffer a great loss. As long as we encounter the Tang army, we may not be discovered and kill them. When the troops discover the situation, they will run away again. Let's wait and see. We will decide when the time comes." Tata couldn't stop, let alone go back. He could only follow the traces left by the 2,000 people. No matter what, he was still chasing after them. He was worried that he would be ambushed. After following the traces left by the troops in front of him for 2 days, he found more traces. There were at least 15,000 people. This discovery made him worried. From the direction, the other party seemed to be heading north. The desert was in the north. What were they going to do there? 15,000 people. He had 13,000 people. No, he couldn't go up alone. Tarada thought carefully and asked someone to tell the other troops about this. At this time, he was traveling at the foot of the mountain. This was the trace left behind. He hoped that someone else would go and find it first. In the end, he waited for another 3 days. The cavalry had already circled the mountain a few times, but they didn't find anyone. The other troops wanted Tadu to go back to the mountain. They suspected that the Tang army had entered the mountain again. Tada had no choice but to ask for help. He borrowed 5,000 people. He only dared to go up the mountain when he had 18,000 people. A lot of things could happen in 5 days. The troops led by Wang Wan met up with the logistics camp and the 2,000 people who had left first. They changed their direction slightly, but in general, they continued to head north into the desert. Wang Wan wanted to lure the Tubo people there. She had already prepared everything. In fact, it was Xiao Bao who prepared everything. Zhang Xiao Bao couldn't command a large-scale war, but he knew what the army usually needed when it came to strategizing. In order to support Wang Wan, he found everything. Wang Wan really wanted to set up a trap to lure Tatatu's troops into it. However, she was worried that the Tubo cavalry would react too quickly. She could only bear with it and wait for an opportunity. In these 5 days, the spies of the Tang Empire had gathered a lot of information and sent it to Pengzhou. The thing that made them the happiest was that Guitu's main force had met up with the logistics camp in Idyll. From the enemy's information, they found out that the logistics camp in Idyll had the command of the army now. The officials in Pengzhou were very surprised. The information in the information was written from the perspective of the Tubo people. It was about how the troops were arranged and how the troops were defeated one after another. The Tubo people were still guessing whether the Tang army had sent out a large number of troops to avoid the spies and come here. However, the officials in Pengzhou were very clear. A total of 16,000 people went out. How could they kill 13,000 Tubo people? This was done when the provisions of the vanguard troops were intercepted and the 3,000 people were captured, killed, and scattered. The officials in Pengzhou knew about this. The servants left behind by the Zhang family and the Wang family also quickly sent the news back to Idyll. Zhang Zhong had already achieved good results. With the cooperation of the people and the support of Old Man Pai and the others, as long as they stayed here for a few more months, they would be able to change Idyll. While he was happy, Zhang Zhong couldn't help but worry about his son and daughter-in-law. Swords and spears had no eyes. Even if one of them was missing, it would be an unbearable blow to his life. Old Man Pai and the other two were also very irritated. Last night, the military station in the capital sent an urgent message, asking them to bring Xiao Bao and Cuckoo back safely no matter what. That's right, the imperial decree directly wrote the words Xiao Bao and Cuckoo. It seemed very intimate. With Gao Lisher's handwriting and the emperor's seal, it could be seen what kind of attitude the capital had towards the two little fellows. Old Man Pai and the other two were worried and worried. Where did they go? There wasn't even any news. Could it be that they were all wiped out? How are they going to live without the two little fellows in the future? Just as everyone was worried, the news from Pengzhou came. The handwriting on it was very ugly. It should have been written in a hurry. After carefully reading it, Zhang Zhong's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. He continued to busy himself with the people's affairs. He was finally relieved. His son and daughter-in-law were indeed outstanding. And immortals were immortals after all. Wasn't it easy to deal with mortals? So what if there were 15,000 people? So what if they were defeated? As long as immortals took over, it would immediately be different. What was the point of dealing with 13,000 Tubo warriors? It was acceptable to deal with even more. Old Man Pai and the other two didn't know whether they were immortals or not. They read the news from Pengzhou from beginning to end. They rubbed their eyes and read it twice in succession. After confirming that they didn't see wrong, the three old men stared at each other speechlessly. Idyll's logistics camp is now famous. There seems to only be Xiao Bao and Cuckoo there, right? From Zhang Zhong's actions, the experts of the Zhang family should be in Idyll. After all, the economic construction here is closely linked. Could it be that Xiao Bao and Cuckoo were the ones commanding the army in battle? Old Man Chong pinched himself. After confirming that he wasn't dreaming, he said to Old Man Pai and Old Man Yao. Old Man Pai nodded. The logistics camp rushed over to provide support. Then the Tang army's tactics changed. With the remnants of the army, they continuously launched sneak attacks and ambushes. They eliminated more than 13,000 Tubo warriors. How did they fight this battle? If it's really like this, then the ones commanding at the front are Xiao Bao and Cuckoo. Then we have to treat them differently. Could it be that the experts of the Zhang family even know how to fight this kind of battle? They taught these two children. Old Man Yao touched his slightly numb face due to excitement and said, Chapter 623. After the news of Tubo was stolen by the Great Tang spies, it quickly spread throughout Jiannan province. The people of Pengzhou were the first to learn about it. They were all worried about the army in front of them, but they also hoped that the army could kill even more Tibetans. The logistics camp in Idyll instantly became famous, and the matters of Zhang Zhong's family were quickly dug up. From Zhangzhe Zhuangzi in Sanshui County to his promotion to the rank 3 provincial governor of Shuzhou, as well as his taking orders in the face of danger and enduring his demotion. These were all publicized by people with ulterior motives. Even though the Zhang Zhong and Wang clans rarely publicly admitted that the businesses between the clouds and the water were their own, they were still branded as their families. Zhang Zhong's reputation was unparalleled, and in the area between Pengzhou and Idyll, people further away still didn't know about it. Some people liked fame and were pleased with themselves, while others were afraid that fame would bring them trouble. The Zhang Zhong and Wang clans were a perfect match. This time, Zhang Zhong didn't need to ask his son and daughter-in-law to understand that they had to make good use of their reputation. They couldn't keep too low a profile, or else they would be letting down his son and daughter-in-law, who were risking their lives on the front lines. He immediately used the reputation of the Zhang Zhong and Wang clans to attract investment, spreading the idea of Idyll's natural environment and investment benefits to the surrounding provinces so that businessmen could participate. Of course, what he spread was only his intentions. As for the specific plan, he didn't. That kind of plan wasn't something that an ordinary person could come up with. He had formed a team with the remaining members of the Zhang Zhong and Wang clans, and he could come up with a plan that no one else in the Great Tang could compare to. However, compared to his son, who did nothing, he was far inferior. Many of the businessmen who received the news were tempted. There is no need to doubt how good the Zhang Zhong and Wang clans were at making money. The businessmen who had cooperated with the Zhang Zhong and Wang clans in the past had all made a lot of money, at least more than if they had done alone. What's more, Zhang Zhong was now asking for help in Wing Prefecture out of goodwill. If he went over to help this time, with the strength of Zhang Zhong's family that could do both business and war, he would be able to benefit from it in the future. Just like that, Zhang Zhong used the reputation he had gained to develop the local economy. He was even willing to share a few ways to make money with others. Originally, it was for his own family. At that time, there was no such opportunity. This kind of righteous action of Zhang Zhong was immediately analyzed by smart people and spread to the ears of the common people. Because Zhang Zhong always did things in the name of the imperial court, the common people first thought that the emperor knew how to make good use of people, sending such a great talent to Jianan Road. Then, they praised Zhang Zhong. This was how it was in the era of imperial power. After the excitement of the old man Pai and the other two, they also tied the news to the legs of a messenger pigeon and sent it to the capital, telling the capital not to worry anymore. The two children were very powerful and seemed to have grasped the essence of the expert's skills. They led a group of defeated soldiers and took a stroll in the mountains and killed 13,000 Tubo soldiers. As for when he would return, he did not know. He would wait for the Tubo to conclude the news before deciding. It was also impossible for them to send reinforcements. He did not know where he was. There was no trace of him, as if he had disappeared. I am puzzled. Don't tell me the two experts of the Zhang family know everything. As for how powerful they are, you can imagine it from the children they taught. This time, I am absolutely right. The experts of the Zhang family did not follow them and stayed in Idyll to teach Zhang Zhong. The logistics camp can only be commanded by Xiaobao and Cuckoo. I don't know which one. Old Man Chang did not know much about the affairs of the scholars, but he liked to march and fight. When he thought about the more than 10,000 people running and fighting at the same time, making the Tubo soldiers unable to find their direction, he became excited. He said this to Old Man Pai and Old Man Yao. Old Man Pai was still worried. He was afraid that the two little fellows were not good enough and won 2 battles by luck. They really thought that they were the best in the world and led a team to attack Jinchuan City. They would be surrounded by the Tubo cavalry unless they grew wings and flew back. I hope that they will come back immediately. It is already a great achievement. If they bring people back safely, it will not weaken the reputation of the Tang Empire. The emperor will also be completely relieved. The emperor has a good idea. The experts of the Zhang family cannot force Xiaobao and Cuckoo. We will wait for Xiaobao and Cuckoo to learn the skills and grow up to serve the country. Maybe the emperor did not expect that before they grow up, they have already started to make military achievements. It will not be easy to arrange them in the future. Xiaobao will definitely be the top scholar. If he is the commander of the battle, will he be the top scholar or the top scholar? If Cuckoo is the commander of the battle, one of them will be the top scholar and the other will be the top scholar. Should we arrange them together or separate them? What's more, Xiaobao's martial arts and Cuckoo's literary skills are not bad. The most suitable place for the two of them to go is the border. Some people are involved in the local economic construction and people's livelihood, and some people are trained to resist foreign enemies, especially the Zhang family. They can have a good relationship with the people in the mountains. Well, think about it first. It is still early. The two of them may not have learned all of the expert skills. No matter how old they have to wait until they are 15 or 16 years old. Old Man Yao meant that if the two little fellows came back and were targeted by others and arranged to be officials with real power, he had to stop them. At least he had to wait until they learned all of the expert skills. According to normal thinking, the expert was not young anymore. Maybe he would die one day. How could they not seize the time to learn? Old Man Pai also had the same idea. He agreed and said yes. After they come back, no matter how others recommend them, Xiaobao and Cuckoo must not be officials with real power. It is better to give them low-ranking officials and noble titles. I have to work hard to live for a few more years and see their achievements with my own eyes. I'll eat the medicinal food. When Old Man Chang heard Old Man Pai say to live for a few more years, he remembered that he still had something to eat. He asked someone to get it and said, I don't care about official positions. I just want to see the scene of the two little fellows killing thousands of people with a wave of their hands. Kill more Tubo people. Let them invade the border every year. Well, yes, where the sword points were the sword points. When others were busy with their own things, Li Sun could not stay still. After he arrived in Idyll, he was restricted a lot. He was not allowed to climb mountains, eat greasy food, or do strenuous exercise. He could only exercise a little every day. He was also not allowed to drink too much. He was not allowed to go out in foggy weather. With all these restrictions and the danshan pill he ate every day, he really did not fall ill. He was grateful for the Zhang family's kindness, but he did not want to continue like this. When Xiao Bao and Cuckoo were not on the battlefield, he could still find them to play. Now he just had to accompany the group of children to play games and sing songs. The children were smart, but it was not as comfortable as being with Xiao Bao. Since Xiao Bao and Cuckoo could go to the battlefield, he was not bad when he was not sick. He did not have too many illnesses, just two. Naturally, he could also go to the front to command the army and fight together. After all, he was a commandery prince. As Li Sun thought about it, he began to organize the troops. In addition to the 200 people he sent, he still had many people. After becoming a commandery prince, he could bring 1,000 to 3,000 people. Now, he had 600 people. Although it was not as good as the 200 people he lent to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, it was not bad. Li Sun, who wanted to bring people to reinforce Xiao Bao and Cuckoo, found a servant of the Zhang family and ordered, "Go and tell my uncle Zhang that I want to support Xiao Bao and Cuckoo. I can't let them fight alone. I will bring people to find them and form a triangle with them." The servant who was found was shocked by Li Sun's words. He thought to himself, "You want to support them like this? It is not certain whether you can find them or not. Even if you are lucky and find the young master and the young lady, they will definitely be a burden. Do you have the ability? The young master and the young lady will have to take time out to take care of you. They will just be a burden." The servant respectfully agreed. When he found Zhang Zhong, he told him Li Sun's idea. He also suggested that Li Sun be watched in case something happened. Zhang Zhong naturally could not let Li Sun run around. With his ability, he would be caught if he brought people out. Even if he had 6,000 people, what could he do? When he found Li Sun, Zhang Zhong threatened him. What he meant was, if you want to go out, go back to Tang and County first and come out from there. You can't come out now. Your father and uncle know that you followed me here. If something happens to you, I can't take responsibility. Be obedient and wait for Xiao Bao and Cuckoo to come back to play with you. Otherwise, don't think of following me anywhere else in the future. Li Sun was scared. He did not have any temper. He wanted to find Lu and the others to play Monopoly. He muttered, "I'm not young anymore. I'm not a child anymore. I still have to obediently wait for Xiao Bao and Cuckoo to come back to play with me. I'm also someone who could do big things." The people of the Zhang family also started following him around, afraid that he would suddenly run away. 3 days had passed since the first report from the Tubo spies. The Tubo spies did not manage to find any useful information. More than 10,000 people had disappeared within their borders just like that. No one knew if they were alive or dead. It was very mysterious. The only news that came back was that the Tubo people were under great pressure. The Tang army could not be found in the territory, so they had to increase their military strength. They had already started to recruit soldiers from other places. There was a gap in the supply of food, and the Tubo people were tortured. At this moment, the capital also received the news again. It was still sent by Gao Lishur. Li Longji did not have a good time these few days. If it was a talented adult, he would not be like this. However, the talents of the experts of the Zhang family were not ordinary. The two little fellows were also so cute. When he dreamed at night, he would dream that Xiao Bao and Cuckoo were captured and killed by the Tubo people. When he woke up, he would be covered in sweat. He would feel the comfortable bed that the Zhang family sent him and would not be able to fall asleep for a long time. The officials of the imperial court also felt this kind of oppressive atmosphere. Because of the two little fellows, everyone could not help but take a few more glances at Jiannan Road. Since they were 10 months old, they gradually started to understand things. They did not cry or make a fuss. They were obedient, filial, and eager to learn. As long as they were not mentally twisted, they all hoped that they would be able to return safely. Of course, they also hoped that they could have such a child in their family. The morning court had just ended. When Li Longji and a few of his close officials were discussing matters, Gao Lishur hurriedly left and returned. He said to Li Longji, who was not in a good mood, but had to discuss matters. Chapter 6:24. At this moment, Li Longji was discussing with Prime Minister Zhang Shuo and Song Jing, who had already been dismissed as prime minister, about the newly built canal. Because Li Sun and the Zhang and Wang families had given them a lot of money, the canal had been built quite well, and it had already been connected to more distant places. If the canal was connected before the autumn harvest, they would be able to transport more food from all over the capital when there was insufficient food. When they talked about this, Li Longji was reminded of the Zhang family and his two children, Xiaobao and Cuckoo. The completion of the canal was obviously a good thing, but it did not put him in a good mood. Zhang Jiuling was not much better than Li Longji. His old housekeeper, who could no longer do anything, was also there. When he was building roads and relay stations back in his hometown, Zhang Zhong, who was the provincial governor of Luzhou, had given him a lot of money to help. He had also given him comfortable furniture and sea-dried goods. Currently, there were two beautiful little red fish swimming in the glass fish tank at home. It was almost time for the fish to come out. However, the two children of the Zhang Wang and Zhang Shuo had gone missing with the logistics battalion. Moreover, they had gone missing in Tubo. How could he be at ease? Zhang Shuo and Song Jing had also received a lot of things from the Zhang Wang and Zhang Sha. Now, every month, they would receive tonics from Huayuan County's day hospital. The four of them were thinking about the children of the Zhang Wang and Zhang Shuo while talking about the canal that was built with money. It would be strange if the atmosphere was good. The canal is done. It's just a little bit away from being connected to the canal. It will be very convenient to use the Zhang family's explosives. The place where the canal crosses the Yellow River needs to be reinforced with cement. You said that the Zhang family had also contributed a lot to the canal, right? That's right. The transportation of food this year will be easier. After the canal is connected, will the two children be able to get out of danger? Before Gao Lishir came in, these were the last words Li Longji said. He was thinking about something else. As he spoke, he brought Xiaobao and Cuckoo out. Therefore, the four of them looked at each other. They felt it was funny but could not laugh. They could only sigh in their hearts. Gao Lishir ran in with a happy smile on his face, waving the letter he had taken from the pigeon. News from Wing Prefecture? What happened to Xiaobao and Cuckoo? When Li Longji heard that it was about Xiaobao and Cuckoo, he threw the matter of the canal aside. It was not important. With the Zhang family and the Wang family around, they could fix it if they wanted to. If the two kids died, wouldn't the Zhang family and the Wang family go crazy? What would the two experts do if their disciples were gone? Li Longji and the other three could not help but show a nervous expression. Fortunately, when they saw Gao Lishir's unconcealable smile, they felt that it should be good news. The two kids ran around Tubo and came back in fright. They were not caught. Gao Lishir did not dare to hesitate. Lightly coughing, he recited, "Reporting to Your Excellency, we received news from Tubo that Xiao Bao Huan personally led the logistics battalion to provide emergency assistance and successfully converged with them. Leading the remaining 12,000 soldiers, they fought in the boundless Jinchuan, breaking 4,000 men of Tata Datu's logistics battalion, completely annihilating them, breaking 3,000 men of Tata Datu's vanguard battalion, breaking 2,000 men of each of Tubo's 3 divisions, seizing and burning their provisions and supplies. After that, leading the main force of the Tang army, they disappeared into the Dichuan." Gao Lishir had tried his best to control his body, but he still could not help but tremble. Even his voice was trembling. Li Longji and the other 3 froze like they were carved out of wood. They only recovered after a few breaths. Li Longji pursed his lips and did not make sound. He clenched his fists tightly, and his chest rose and fell. It was obvious that he was trying his best to suppress the excitement in his heart. Zhang Shuo and the other two's faces were also flushed. They could not find their usual composure. Zhang Jiuling was the first to speak. "Congratulations to Your Majesty. Xiaobao and Cuckoo have obtained the true teachings of the expert. They're invincible when fighting outside the country." With one person speaking, the other 3 almost simultaneously let out a sigh of relief. "So Xiaobao and Cuckoo are fine for the time being. Good. It should be the 2 of them commanding the army. Guitu does not have that ability yet. When Xiaobao and Cuckoo grow up, we will have no worries." These two kids are really capable. Let's put aside the matter of the canal for now and talk about it. Yes, talk about it. Li Longji was happy. He felt that even though it was about to rain outside, it was still so comfortable. He, who rarely smiled, opened his eyes wide and raised his eyebrows. The corners of his mouth curled up. He loosened his fists and rubbed his hands together. Zhang Shao and the other two also realized that the originally dark room had suddenly become bright. Your Majesty, I believe that Xiao Bao and Huan Huan will definitely be able to return safely with a body full of military merits. I really can't think of how you want me to go to such a place to look for them, successfully find them, and then immediately lead the defeated army to consecutive victories. How can you do that? They are still two children. When Li Longji asked Zhang Shuo and the other two, Gao Lisher's eyes turned red. He couldn't help but imagine two 9-year-old kids. After receiving the imperial edict, they gathered the people from the logistics camp and rode on their horses with their little faces up high. They resolutely chased after the setting sun in the west. That was where Tufan was located. After searching and searching, they avoided the search of the Tufan patrolling cavalry again and again. They successfully found Guitu and the others on the Jinchuan mountain range. Looking at the dispirited soldiers, they took out the food they had brought and distributed it to everyone. Guitu, who had lost the battle, was a coward. No matter what, he did not dare to command the army anymore. He pushed the responsibility to his godson and daughter-in-law. The courage of more than 12,000 people was now on the shoulders of his godson and daughter-in-law. His son and daughter-in-law had no choice but to lead the troops. As they ran, they thought of a solution. After thinking and thinking, they finally thought of what others had taught them. They ran around the mountain and fought again and again. Every time they fought, his son and daughter-in-law would fight with the determination to die. Under the encirclement and pursuit of the enemy, they escaped again and again and again, found a chance to counterattack. With the 12,000 remaining soldiers, they wiped out the same number of enemies. In the end, because there were too many enemies, they stole food to replenish their supplies and hid together on the cold, snowy mountain to warm themselves. It was quite pitiful. Gao Lisher, who had already treated Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan as his godson and daughter-in-law, felt more and more like this. In the end, he could not help but cry. After hearing Gao Lisher's words, Li Longji, who had been happy just a moment ago, also thought of the predicament that the two children were going to face. With a sullen face, he slammed the table and said, Guitu, you can't do anything right, but you're good at ruining things. Do you think that Guitu can't take it anymore and gave the troops to Xiao Bao and Cuckoo? If they win, he will get credit. If they lose, it will have nothing to do with him, right? This official thinks that General Guo might. What general? He's not a general anymore. I'll dismiss him. Let the children fight for the generals. The great Tang doesn't want them. Before Song Jing could finish, Li Longji was already dissatisfied with the way he addressed Guitu and dismissed him. Song Jing hurriedly changed his words. This official thinks that the criminal Guitu might not have given up his military power of his own accord. When the sand table in the imperial court deduced that he would form an alliance with others, Guitu was already obsessed with power. He probably had his eyes on Xiao Bao and Cuckoo's logistics camp. Your Majesty also knows that the logistics camp has 56 people from the Zhang family and 200 people from Commandery Prince Tang. These 256 people have been trained by the Zhang family and can be said to be the elites of the elites. Coupled with the financial and technical support of the Zhang family, their equipment is definitely superior to other soldiers. Guitu wanted to take advantage of his superior numbers and wanted to take over this group of people. In the end, he probably underestimated Xiao Bao and Cuckoo and was forcefully taken over. Your Majesty should know that Zhang Wang's inner courtyard can take over hundreds of officials and handle the government affairs of a prefecture alone. The protector of the seedlings is also proficient in the art of leading troops. This official guesses that the 12,000 soldiers and 12 battalion commanders have all been replaced. Thus, Xiao Bao and Cuckoo can be easily ordered around. This official suggests that Pengzhou should be ordered to release news to inform the people of Tubo who will be defeated. This will infuriate them, and they will have no choice but to surround and annihilate them. This will create an opportunity for Xiao Bao and Cuckoo to escape. This official agrees. Zhang Shuo and Zhang Juling agreed at the same time. Then when Guatu comes back, we can't let him off easily. That's right. Zhang Wang's inner courtyard can take over the government affairs. The meticulously trained protector of the seedlings will definitely be able to lead troops. If an ordinary servant can be trained to this level, Xiaobao and Cuckoo, these two smart little fellows, will definitely learn more. Li Longji's expression turned back and looked at Gao Lishur, wanting to hear what he had to say. Gao Lishur was also thinking about how to let his godson and daughter-in-law come back alive. He knew the art of leading troops and understood that the more anxious the other party was, the better. With the abilities that his godson and daughter-in-law had shown, it was still possible for them to run back to Pengzhou amidst the chaos. It was better than hiding in the mountains. Seeing the emperor looking over, he nodded and said, "This official thinks that other than releasing the news, we should also let the Pengzhou government troops act as if they are about to leave the border and attack. This will restrain more Tubo troops and prevent them from acting rashly." Li Longji and Wei Wei nodded and said, "This is a good idea." Gao Lishur quickly went to write the decree. Li Longji was also in a good mood to discuss the matter of the canal with Zhang Shuo and the other two, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, who were being remembered by others, had already left the mountains, who would be willing to suffer the cold for no reason. The two of them led the troops all the way to the north. After walking for a few days, they turned east, which was the direction of the Tang Empire. There were a few Tubo villages here. The most important thing was that the crops were early rice. It was the kind that was planted early and had just matured. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan led people to help the local people harvest the crops out of kindness. The local people just had to stay at home. Zhang Xiaobao carefully investigated the people in the various villages and found people who were prone to betrayal. He controlled their families and promised them great benefits to deal with the patrolling Tubo cavalry. The scouts were everywhere. When they found the enemy, they would first report. The harvesting troops would then stop and hide, waiting for the people to pass by to continue harvesting. The patrolling Tubo cavalry received the order to pay attention to this line of mountains and not let the Tang army come down. At the beginning, they told the people to be careful and to report if there was anything. Later on, they did not find anything and only went back and forth once a day. They were too lazy to ask too many questions. As long as they saw the local people, they would casually ask. Just like this, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan led 14,000 people to hide in this place. They used the fastest speed to dig a cellar in the local people's houses. If there was anything, they would hide in it. Of course, things are not that simple. According to Wang Wan's words, this was not the tradition of the army. The army had to follow the 3 great disciplines and 8 points for attention. With some changes, it could be used in a few villages here. Other than controlling them and not allowing them to report, they treated the people very well. The doctors that came out with the troops even treated the people. Those that could be treated with acupuncture would be treated immediately. Those that needed medicine would be collected by the local people who betrayed them. The local people did not have a good life. If they were really capable, they would not live on the border of the two countries. If the Tang army came, they would hide in the mountains. If their own army came, it would be impossible for them to hide. They had to obediently serve the Tang army well and give the Tang army satisfactory things. Therefore, other than the local people, most people did not have any concept of the country, let alone a sense of honor. This was what Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan made use of. The two of them were also clear that not to mention now, even in their time, many people living on the border did not care so much. They would listen to whoever was good to them. Even if the smugglers and drug dealers were good to them, they would cooperate. They would even help to transport the drugs and join in. What Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan wanted to do was to instigate the 1,000 people in the surrounding villages to defect. They would bring food and belongings and find an opportunity to go to Pengzhou. From Pengzhou, They would go to Idyll to replenish the population of Idyll. The Tubo people did not expect that there would be enemies with such ideas. The scouts ran around and thought that the Tang army was hiding in the mountains and had not come out. Otherwise, the place would not be so peaceful and quiet. In a harmonious atmosphere, Wang Wan took out the military map and began the next step of the plan. The captain of the other two people said to the two people and ordered them to take out the rope. One end of the rope was tied to the wall, and the other person went to look for a basket. At this moment, Zhang Lang said, "There's no need for a basket. We can go down. Chin in, one, and go." The two large dogs very sensibly used their teeth to bite the rope. They glanced at their master and stood on the wall. Bit by bit, they retreated and hung there. Under the shocked gazes of the soldiers, the two large dogs were put down. Zhang Lang climbed down the rope, and Zhang Ying followed behind. The eagle on his shoulder flew up by itself. When the two people and three animals were no longer in sight, the soldiers on the wall looked at the captain. One of them leaned forward and asked, "Boss, who are they?" "They're from a logistics camp in Idyll. I heard that they took the military station from the capital and rushed over 800 miles. As for their purpose, it's not something you should know," the captain said to the soldier who asked the question and then turned around to leave. The remaining soldiers looked at each other. They were actually from the capital. The two people who were sent here by the military station were definitely not simple. It was very likely that they were going to reinforce the troops in front. They didn't know what abilities they had. I say, could they be two killing gods again? Just like the two children of the Zhang family. I heard that the troops won consecutive battles under the command of the two children. Damn, the people from the logistics camp in Idyll are all evil. A soldier whispered to the person next to him. Everyone nodded. They also wanted to see what the troops that left looked like when they returned. The soldiers didn't know what the two people could do, but the commanding officer of Pingzhou had already received accurate information. The two people came from Sanshui County. It seemed that their surname wasn't Zhang at first. After being taken in by the people of Sanshui County, they changed their name. It was to match the two children of Sanshui County. How could it be that they were simple to send two people from thousands of miles away? As soon as the two people entered the Tubo territory, they began to run wildly. They wanted to find a place to hide before dawn to avoid being discovered by the patrolling Tubo cavalry. After running for 4 hours, the two people finally arrived at a small mountain at dawn. The forest on the mountain was relatively dense. They entered one after another before finding a place to rest against a big tree. "Brother, where do you think the young master and young lady could be? If they are far away, won't they die from exhaustion?" Zhang Lang drank a mouthful of water and poured it into his palm for Qian in and Wan in to lick. "I don't know. Let Shui Yun look for them later. This time, the young master and young lady are trapped. Young Master Song sent the two of us over to help the young master and young lady. No matter how far we are, we have to go. Without the Zhang family and Wang family, we wouldn't be where we are today. Our parents wouldn't be able to live a good life either. If we encounter a small number of Tubo cavalry, kill them and take their horses. I hope that when we arrive, the young master and young lady won't suffer any harm." Zhang Ying took out a piece of meat and threw it to Shui Yun as he spoke firmly. When the sky brightened a little, Shui Yun spread his wings and flew into the sky, turning into a small black dot. Zhang Ying, Zhang Lang, and the two large dogs took the opportunity to rest. The Tubo cavalry was in groups of 5, running back and forth on the roads where the Tang army might appear. Jijida was the leader of a group of 5. He set off early in the morning with the hope of discovering the Tang army ahead of time and earning a great merit. However, he was also a little worried that the Tang army would discover them first and fall into an ambush. Of course, it would be even better if they could encounter local commoners who were afraid of war. Usually, they would be able to obtain some benefits from such commoners. 2 pieces of leather or a large piece of dried meat would be considered a small gain. It would be even better if there was a slightly beautiful woman among the commoners. When he thought of meeting a woman and having fun with her in his arms, Gigi couldn't help but pull his clothes together. It was still very cold in the morning, especially when riding on a horse. When the wind blew, the front of his chest would be cold to the bone. The four people behind Idyll were also very much looking forward to meeting commoners fleeing for their lives. A few days ago, they met a family of four. Not only did they steal 3 pieces of good leather, but they also relaxed with a woman of that family. In the end, on the second day, they met another family who hadn't run far. Needless to say, that woman naturally had to serve them for a while. This time, they hoped to meet a few more beautiful women. At that time, they would be able to enjoy their bodies for at least 3 days. After 3 days, they would cross the border and could only give them to their brothers. When the 5 of them were galloping on their horses, a small black in the sky stared at them. When the 5 of them were still a few li away from a small mountain in front of them, the black sped up and flew ahead of them. Big eagle. It's a pity that it flew too high and couldn't be shot down. Otherwise, its feathers would be worth a lot of money. The 5 of them also noticed the eagle in the sky. Idyll looked regretfully at the eagle flying away and said with yearning. The other 4 were also just thinking about it. They didn't think that they could shoot down the eagle with their own abilities. Finding a woman was more important. After a few li, the 5 of them quickly arrived at their destination. When they saw the small mountain in front of them, they dismounted and let the horses find something to eat. The 5 of them climbed up the mountain to see further. The wind in the forest was still weak, so they didn't feel uncomfortable. Idyll, why don't we find some hay here and make a nest? If we meet a woman in the future, we can bring her here. One of the 5 of them suddenly had an idea and came up with this idea. The others' eyes lit up. If they really found a woman and brought her here, they could enjoy her during the day and tie her to a tree at night. That way, they could use her for many days. Idyll laughed. That's right. We'll do it when we reach the top. With a goal in mind, the 5 of them walked faster. When they were about to reach the top, they were still thinking about women and didn't know what was waiting for them. Just when the 5 of them reached the top of the mountain and relaxed, a shadow suddenly flew down from the tree behind them. With a muffled sound, a big hole was bitten in the neck of the last person, and blood spurted out. With a muffled groan, the man was pressed to the ground by the eagle's charge and couldn't get up anymore. When the other 4 of them heard the noise and turned around, 2 of them had been nailed with crossbow bolts. The other 2 saw a big thing in front of them. Then, their necks heated up and their vision turned black. They lost consciousness. At this time, Zhang Ying and Zhang Lang unhurriedly walked closer and checked the 5 corpses. Only then did they bring the 1 eagle and 2 dogs, who had just performed a meritorious service, towards the horses that the 5 people rode. The water cloud once again flew high into the sky. Chapter 626. The Tibetans only discovered that 1 squad was missing at night. Once they discovered it, they didn't just discover that 1 squad was missing, they also discovered that the number of patrols in various places was missing. If someone was able to calculate the losses in these few places, they would get a number 12. 12 teams of patrols disappeared just like that. No one discovered the corpses, and no one saw the horses. The Tibetans didn't seem to care too much about the sudden disappearance of 60 people. After all, they didn't go to other places to ask. If they lost a team, it was very likely that they had encountered a pack of wolves. Such situations were very common in the bushes and mountains. After being ambushed by more than 10 wolves, those with slow reactions wouldn't have the chance to run back. The most frightening thing was to dismount and let the people and horses rest while they were being surrounded. Of course, there was another possibility, and that was that someone had found the fleeing commoners and was eating and living with them. This kind of situation wasn't rare. If someone wanted to investigate, they would say that they had found traces of the enemy and had been following them for a day. No one suspected much on this day. However, if there was no reaction when a team was missing, then for 3 consecutive days, there would be people missing every day. Furthermore, the previous team hadn't returned yet. Then, there would be something wrong. Zhang Ying and Zhang Lang searched for 3 days but still couldn't find the Tang army. Shui Yun flew with all her might. Other than searching for the Tang army, she also had to report the Tibetans to her master. After that, it was up to 1 eagle, 2 dogs, and 2 people to cooperate in battle. Usually, the eagle would swoop down from behind the enemy, grabbing one with his claws and biting one with his beak. Zhang Ying and Zhang Lang would shoot with their crossbows and arrows. The remaining person would be left to the two dogs. One would be responsible for pouncing down from the horse, while the other would be responsible for biting the throat. Both were in a team of 5, but Zhang Ying's team was always able to find the enemy before they ambushed. The Tibetans, on the other hand, were always unlucky. In 3 days, Zhang Ying's team of 5 dealt with 40 teams of Tibetans. In total, they had a total of 200 people. They also obtained 200 horses. Luckily, there were many horses in the place where the two of them lived. They knew how to keep the horses, otherwise it would be difficult to control them. This time, the Tibetans finally realized that something was wrong. Since the teams of cavalrymen were missing, it definitely wasn't as simple as encountering a pack of wolves or finding a woman. As a result, the originally scattered cavalry began to shrink, and the 5 teams became 10 teams. This action was effective. Although they still couldn't find the person who launched the sneak attack, they weren't attacked for a day, and the number of people who went out returned the same. However, after only 1 day, there were more teams that did not return. This time, 10 people and 10 horses disappeared in one go. After Zhang Ying and Zhang Lang realized that they couldn't cooperate with each other to wipe out the 10-man team like before, they thought for an entire day and finally came up with a plan. Zhang Lang or Zhang Ying would change into tubo clothes and find a hillside to dig a trap. Then, one of them would shout from the front to attract the 10 men. When all 10 of them had fallen into the trap, or when some of them had fallen into the trap, the 2 of them and their animals would work together to eliminate the others. On this day, they used the same method to deal with 3 groups of people in the same place. When they were dealing with the last group of people, one of them reacted quickly. He ran out on a horse and prepared to go back to report. Unfortunately, no matter how fast he reacted, his horse couldn't outrun an eagle. With a dive, he was finished off. On the 6th day after Zhang Ying and Zhang Lang arrived in Tubo, they finished off another 4 teams. The 2 of them led their 265 horses and no longer continued to fight with the Tibetans. They continued to head north. Out of the 5 horses, 4 of them fell into the trap and were buried. The last one had 5 people killed to solve its food problem. The Tubo people were already confused. Just how many people were attacking them? Could it be that the main force of the Tang army was here? Only if the number of scouts was 5 times more than the Tibetans would they be able to kill all of them. As a result, the focus of the Tibetans' search returned to the area where Tatatadu was ambushed. There were still 10 teams of scouts, but there was another team behind each team. They were not far away and could vaguely see the people in front of them. This way, if something happened, they could shout loudly or see it with their own eyes. Wang Wan and Zhang Xiaobao led the team to rest for a few days. All the rice was harvested and harvested. They treated the local people much better than before. Furthermore, by bad-mouthing the Tibetans, they guided the people to talk about how they were bullied. This made the people hate the Tibetans even more for stealing their things and raping their wives and daughters. They hanged the heads of 2 villages. These 2 village heads had bullied the people in their villages together with a certain tribe of Tubo. They also divided the things in the village heads' houses. This made the people feel relieved. Wang Wan also asked the doctors who treated the people to talk about how good Idyll was and how happy life was there. They told the single men that there were beautiful women in Idyll who liked men like them. They also told the old people that there was a place specially prepared for the old people in Idyll. If they had children, they would tell them that all the children in Idyll could learn to read and write without spending money. To single women, they would tell them that there were many capable men in Idyll who wanted to marry women like them very much. They would not even let go of their children. After giving their children some rock candy to treat illnesses, they would tell them that there were many more delicious candies in Idyll. The local people gradually surrendered under such brainwashing. They looked at the Tang army. How good were they? They didn't rob the people's things, raping the women and their families, and eating the hearts of the children. They even helped to work and treated the people's diseases. Of course, they didn't know that when the logistics camp of the Tang army first arrived, they slaughtered a village. On this day, Wang Wan saw that the wounded people had almost recovered. Those who were seriously injured wouldn't die easily on the road, except for those who died. She prepared to lead people to create an opportunity for the local people and the people in charge of logistics to escape back to Pengzhou. In fact, there was another way, but Wang Wan didn't plan to let the people use it. It was not a good way to go. After dawn, Wang Wan began to make preparations. They would start the operation at night. Those who needed to sleep slept, and those who needed to tidy up their things. The last batch of clothes was also washed. When they were dry at night, they would wear them. The smell of blood was much stronger than before. At noon, a small black dot appeared in the sky. It seemed to be attracted by something below, so it lowered a lot. When the people in the village saw clearly that it was an eagle, it turned around and flew away. Wang Wan and Zhang Xiaobao also saw the eagle. They felt that there was something wrong with the eagle's movements. The two of them took a closer look with their binoculars, but they couldn't see what was wrong with it. 30 li away from the village, Zhang Ying and Zhang Lang were waiting with their 2 dogs. There were another 20 horses in the team, but the 2 of them were wounded. They encountered a group of 10 Tibetan cavalrymen in front and back. As the horses were too obvious, they were discovered. In a situation where they couldn't hide, the 2 of them first used the horses to charge. Then, they abandoned the crossbows and used the bows to shoot at the Tibetan cavalrymen. They ran out of arrows, used up the 2 muskets, and shot out arrows. They won the battle with knife wounds and arrows on their bodies. Even Qianin's head was cut by a knife, revealing the bone. It stopped bleeding and lay in its owner's arms. Shui Yun was released to check if there were any enemies chasing after them or in the surroundings. In the end, Shui Yun found the Tang army's clothes that were drying in the village. After circling around to confirm, she rushed back. After Zhang Ying and Shui Yun had a simple conversation, he happily said to Zhang Lang, "Let's go, we found our men in front. Quick!" As he spoke, he carried Wan In onto the horse. Zhang Lang also carried Qianin. The 2 of them led the 285 horses and headed towards the village in front. The distance of 30 li was less than 2 hours if the horses galloped at full speed. When the 2 of them were about 6 li away from the village, the members of Team 0, who were in charge of guarding, saw them. When a tree fell, the people observing from behind did the same thing. When Zhang Ying and Zhang Lang were 5 li away from the village, the people in the village had already made their preparations. The clothes that were hung up to dry began to be collected, and the people went into the cellar. The people in charge of guarding in front were thinking of ways to hide themselves. Their losses were minimal. This was fine. After all, there might not be a single ruthless person in 1,000 years. However, looking at the 2 people sent by the Zhang family, in 7 days, just the 2 of them killed 290 Tubo people and brought back 285 horses. According to this, there was no need to use the main force. If the Zhang family had nothing to do, they could just send 2 people out every few days. The Tubo people would probably be wiped out in less than a year. After Zhang Ying finished talking about his and his younger brother's experience, he realized that the gazes of the surrounding people had changed. They were filled with respect and admiration. Huzi went forward and sized up the 2 of them. He grinned and said, "Good, good. You didn't weaken our reputation. Let the Tubo people know that they can scheme against anyone but us, the Zhang family and Wang family. Otherwise, even if they are thousands of miles away, they will still have to bear the consequences of revenge. Any one of us can take care of them. How'd you sell these eagles? You gave 1 to each of us in the Meow Protection Team and raised them for fun." Huzi's words sounded reasonable at the beginning, but his intentions were exposed at the end. Zhang Ying was also honest. He replied, "Eagles like the cloud water are rare. Usually, it costs about 600 strings of cash to raise them. Some people raise them cheaper. If you don't spend too much money to catch them, you might be able to use them as hunting eagles with a few dozen strings of cash. Mine is a war eagle. I raised it specifically for the young master and young lady. From the time I got the cloud water to the time it could fight together, I spent more than 1,000 strings of cash. The cloud water is bigger than other eagles. It can easily grab an adult and fly in the sky. When I came here, I thought about it. If Li Shi wants to recognize Xiao Bao as his adopted son, then do it when we return to the capital. Don't run around outside. The wind on the mountain is strong, and it's cold and cold. If you don't listen, come back and beat me with a plank." When Zhang Ying said this, the surrounding people gasped. Everyone was shocked by the emperor's attitude towards the young master and young lady. Most of the emperor wouldn't say this to his own son, right? Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were also stunned. The two of them didn't expect Li Longji to have such a cute side. Xiaoli is really a good person. Even if he is pretending, he rarely pretends in front of others. Once these words spread, I could be a dandy in the future. Let's see who dares to provoke me. Xiao Bao whispered to Wang Wan. Wang Wan nodded. Then we can't go back. Xiaoli's words are worth the lives of 10,000 Tubo soldiers. We can't let him say it for nothing. Gutu was speechless. What was this called? He thought about himself and knew that if no one spoke up for him, then once he returned, he would be finished. He didn't dare to run, and he couldn't run. His family was still in the capital, and how could he run out of this village? The emperor could just send 2 people to deal with him, and the eagle called Shui Yun was watching from the sky. When he thought of this, he set his eyes on Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. He didn't want to seize power, and he didn't want to take revenge on others. The emperor had personally said that he wanted them to go back quickly, and he even showed a caring expression. With such good conditions, as long as they weren't idiots, they would think of a way to scheme against the enemy. For hours later, the Tubo soldiers discovered that 2 groups of people were missing. They were already vigilant and immediately sent people to search. In the end, a group of 100 encountered a battalion of light cavalry. They were shot down by the enemy's crossbow arrows at a leeward area. They didn't even manage to escape. They were still wearing armor. The light cavalry only had a single piece of clothing and didn't even have leather armor. The food they brought was only enough to last them for 2 days. They were all chasing after speed. The disappearance of a group of 100 left the Tubo soldiers no choice but to send people to check again. This time, 2 groups of 100 returned. Before they could run to the location, they encountered a battalion of light cavalry. At the same time, the wind was against them and they were shot down. This time, they learned to be smart and scattered to escape. In the end, they discovered that there were enemies in every direction. The 2 groups of 100 lost contact with the Tubo soldiers again. This time, the Tubo soldiers didn't continue to send a group of 100, but a group of 1,000. Unfortunately, when the group of 1,000 rushed over, they were all gone. In the middle of the night, who would want to play with them? Why weren't they sleeping? The group of 1,000 didn't dare to rashly advance. They slowly arrived at the village and discovered that there was no one here. Those that could be brought away were all taken away by the commoners. This time, they finally understood where the enemy had been hiding. They were actually hiding in these few villages. It seemed that the commoners were also bribed. When the group of 1,000 saw that there were no enemies, they could only send 200 people back to report. The remaining 800 people stayed in the village. The wind was weaker here, and it wasn't that cold. When dawn came, the reinforcements that the 800 people were waiting for didn't come. The 200 people who went back to report last night were also gone. When the 800 people didn't dare to scatter and return to their encampment, they told the situation. The generals in the headquarters were all stunned. How many people were there in the Tang army? How could they leave all 200 cavalry behind? Could it be that this was where the main force of the Tang army was? Since the Tang army in the village was gone, where was the main force of the Tang army now? Tadata also received the news. His men were still on the mountain with 13,000 men. It wasn't that he didn't want to go back, but he didn't dare to. If he went back, his position would be gone. He had lost 7,000 men. How could he think about it? Therefore, he kept asking people to send him supplies. He always lied that he found small groups of Tang army chasing and annihilating them. After hearing this news, Tatata's first reaction was that the opportunity had come. He sent a message to the other divisions, saying that he knew where the main force of the Tang army was. They were on the mountain, and he asked for reinforcements. He could bring his men to fight a head-on battle. The people in the other divisions didn't believe him for a long time. The last time they sent 6,000 men, all of them were annihilated. They even sent reinforcements. Maybe the main force of the Tang army was still at the place where his 4,000 men were killed, looking for a chance to launch a sneak attack. Damn clairvoyance. How can they see so far? If we continue to fight like this, we will be in a passive position. Didn't those people who went to Tang to collect information and secretly recruit officials know how to bring back a few clairvoyants? They could have found one and let the craftsmen learn how to make one. Tatato hated himself when he thought that he was always one step behind the enemy. He knew the use of clairvoyance. They could discover the enemy in advance and make arrangements in advance. They could ambush or retreat, making it impossible for the enemy to guard against. If he had won, he would definitely not lose. Tat 2 days had passed. All the Tibetans were looking for the main force of the Tang army, but no one could find it. 3 hours later, when the remaining men found the 3,000 men and turned back, there was no one at the place where they were ambushed. Judging from the marks, they should have gone down the mountain. I told you that the main force of the Tang army is here. Look at the density of the arrows. There are at least 3,000 men. If there are 3,000 crossbowmen, how many saber and spear soldiers are there? If they're not the main force, then what are they? The messenger sent by Idyll repeated his words. The people in the divisions had no choice but to believe him. That's right, 3,000 crossbowmen. According to the ratio, they were definitely the main force of the Tang army. The main force of the Tang army should be ambushing Titu in front of the road and the flat ground at the foot of the mountain. They had to go up and down. But this time, they didn't send reinforcements to Tatata directly. Instead, they wanted to take the credit themselves. The 3 divisions had 6,000 men each. This way, they didn't have to worry about being ambushed and annihilated. When the 3 divisions arrived at the place where they were ambushed, Titu received news that the 1,000 men he sent to find the main force of the Tang army had been ambushed. Only about 100 of them had escaped. At this time, even if they were defeated one by one, he would accept it. As long as the 18,000 men behind him could avenge him, he would accept it. Wang Wan was very relaxed at this time. It was different with an eagle. It could fly in the sky and scan the ground. It could cover an area of dozens of kilometers. Even if it flew more, it could see the situation within 100 kilometers. Shui Yun had made a great contribution. Every day, someone would hunt fresh game for it to eat. Now I finally know why it is so difficult to fight against the grassland tribes with eagles. Only the eagle can restrain them. Unless more people are sent, unless the enemy's main force is ignored and the enemy civilians are wiped out directly. Otherwise, the same number of troops can be used to determine the result. Wang Wan liked Shui Yin very much. It was so comfortable to bring it around the enemy's territory. Zhang Xiaobao was also very happy. He planned to ask Zhang Ying to train more people like Shui Yun and catch more eagles. It was just money. He would give as much as he wanted. At this time, when he heard Wang Wan's words, he asked, "Does that mean that as long as you have this eagle, you will have no opponents?" "No, that depends on who is in command. If it was my instructor back then, with the same number of people, I would definitely win against him if I had the eagle and he didn't. However, if he had the current number of people in Tubo, it would be like child's play for him to beat me. The eagle isn't omnipotent. There's a tactic called feint, another method called disguise, and another method called marching. Not to mention him, even those old generals in the early Tang dynasty have ways to force me away. If I continue to fight, then I will definitely lose. Of course, it won't be that easy to catch me. We can escape on our own at the most critical moment, and when we return to our dynasty, we will have more soldiers to fight. At that time, it won't be just 15,000 soldiers. I will not be so stupid as to not have the face to meet my elders. As long as I am alive, there is hope. Yes, the Tibetan cavalry has moved out. It is almost time to wrap things up. I will give Shaoli a gift. Wang Wan was not arrogant enough to think that she was invincible. She also did not deliberately belittle herself. If she had something good, she would use it. Who cares if the Tibetans had telescopes or eagles? Could it be that she could not throw an atomic bomb at them if they did not have one? The Tibetans felt that this battle was too difficult, but they had to fight. This was a battle in their own territory. If they did not fight the enemy, how could they live a peaceful life? The people of Tatatatu formed a horizontal line and searched forward. 18,000 people who were waiting to take advantage of the situation also followed closely behind. They hoped that this time they could eliminate the enemy's main force in the vast Golden River. In the middle of the night, the Tibetans lit up their torches. They did not intend to rest and continued to move forward. Just after they moved forward for another 2 hours, 3,000 light cavalrymen ran over from the village and attacked the 18,000 people supply team. Fire arrows filled the sky and lit up the dark night sky. The 3,000 light cavalrymen did not continue to fight. After they finished burning the things, they took out the horses from the opponent's stables and turned to run again. Crazy. The Tibetans were crazy, especially the people from the 3rd Division who came to help. They questioned Tatata, "Where is the main force of the Tang army? Didn't you say that they were on the mountain?" They left Tatatu alone, and the people from the 3rd Division went down the mountain together to help. There were more than 5,000 horses. What if they were all lost? The provisions were also burnt. Tatatato also saw the flames in the distance, but he could not figure out why the main force of the Tang army had run away. It was too fast, unless it was the cavalry. However, he still felt that the main force of the Tang army was right in front of him. To prove that he was right, he divided the team into 4,000 and 6,000 men. The 6,000 men continued to move forward while he led the 4,000 men to chase after the 3 troops. He wanted to see if the main force of the Tang army was there. 2 hours later, large dark clouds appeared in the sky. It seemed that there would be a rain before dawn. A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky and struck a tree not far away. Tatatu and the others were shocked. Then, the sky turned dark and the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. Tata was still puzzled. How could a thunderstorm make such commotion? Before he could figure it out, the people in the team started to fall one after another. Screams of agony could be heard one after another. Tadata looked at the scene with the help of the torch. He was stunned for a moment before he shouted, "There's an ambush!" He wanted to show his heroic spirit and continue to charge forward instead of retreating. However, when he saw the spear that pierced through his subordinates in gloomy dark, he wisely chose to escape. As he ran, Wang Wan and Zhang Xiaobao chased after him with their men. The 4,000 men had stayed on the mountain for a few days, and they were finally able to put their skills to good use. The spears made from the branches they cut down were also very useful. Illuminated by enemy torches, they knew where to throw them. Tata did not rest in the first place. He only wanted to lure the main force of the Tang army. Now that he had lured them, he did not have the strength to fight back. After running for a while, Tata came to his senses and shouted again, "Throw away the torches. Throw them away. Quick!" Once the torches were thrown away, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's men would not be able to aim accurately. They did not dare to light the torches, as it would be easy for them to be forced into a corner and counterattack. The people of the protection team, go ahead. Act according to the plan. Wang Wan wanted to teach Tatatu a lesson. This was a good opportunity. When she saw that it was dark everywhere and only thunder could light up the place, she immediately ordered the protection team to move out. The people of the protection team rushed into the enemy's team. As they ran, they shouted the Tubo language that they had learned. "Oh no, the enemy is coming. Run!" The people behind them listened to the sound and threw their spears. Wherever there was such a sound, they would not fly so as to not hurt their own people. After running for a while, Tata's men and himself could not run anymore. They could not help but slow down gradually. Some people stopped running and turned around to fight with the Tang army. Taking advantage of the darkness, they really killed some people. "Oh no, General Tatu is dead. We are surrounded. Hurry up and surrender." "Oh no, Tatatu is dead. Surrender." The people of the protection team could not find Tatata's location and could only continue shouting. This time, a small number of Tubo people stopped running and knelt on the ground to surrender. There were two people beside Tadu who knelt down. Tadada was so angry that he killed them one by one. He shouted, "Who said that I am dead? I'm still." Before he finished shouting, he covered his mouth. He realized that something was wrong. Wasn't he giving the enemy a specific location? Sure enough, he wasn't wrong. Just as he shouted those words, countless spears flew towards his position. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and rushed down the mountain ahead of time. Behind him, there was a series of screams. Tadata hid behind a tree and shivered. "Damn it, this is too cruel. I will become a porcupine if I am a little later." He did not say anything. The people of the protection team continued to shout that he was dead. This time, he did not say anything. Otherwise, another wave of spears would fly toward him. There were blurry silhouettes everywhere, and he did not know if they were his allies or his enemies. Tadata thought for a while and took off his clothes. He found a corpse beside him and put them on himself. Taking advantage of the darkness, he slowly crawled to a place. Even so, there were still people who threw spears at him and landed on his calf. He was in so much pain that he grimaced, but he did not make a sound. As he crawled, he realized that there were more people. They seemed to be running behind him. Listening to the shouting, he realized that it was the Tang army. This time, he did not dare to move. He lay on the ground and waited. As long as the Tang army rushed over, he might be able to escape. However, his plan was ruined by a flash of lightning and a child's voice. When the lightning flashed, a voice said, This person was hit in the calf. How'd he die? Look." As soon as the voice fell, someone immediately came over from beside the two children. Tadado already knew who the two children were. The spy in Pengzhou had sent the news. The ones who defeated him were not the generals, but the two children. When he heard the news, he did not believe it at all. Otherwise, he would not have the face to live. At this time, when he saw the two children in front of him, he was shocked. However, he understood that it was indeed the two children who were commanding the army. The opportunity was right in front of him. Tadada did not know where the strength came from. He did not care about the spear in his calf. He pushed off the ground with his hands and rushed toward the two children in front of him. He thought it through. As long as he caught the two children, no one would dare to touch him. When he brought the children back, it would be a great achievement. The people from the seedling protection team had been sent out, and it was so dark, the people guarding Zhang Xiaobao and Wan did not even have time to react. They could only see a blurry shadow leaping over, heading straight for the little young master and little Mississippi. Just as they were in a state of panic, they saw the figure that was pouncing towards them fly away in a flash. "Damn, we are going to be generals soon." Zhang Xiaobao and Wan retracted their legs at the same time. They cursed and put down the arm that had just shot the arrow. It was really scary just now. "Young master, young lady, are you okay?" The person next to them asked with concern. There were already people over there who held down the person who dared to sneak attack them. They would not let him die easily if he dared to attack the young master and young lady. "It's okay, little guy. How dare a disabled person who was hit by a spear fight with me and Cuckoo? Do you really think you are a hero? Do you think you are me, who can escape from the search with a broken arm?" Zhang Xiaobao replied. He lowered his voice so that only Wan could hear him. Wan laughed and said to the people in front of her, "Bring him here. I want to see who is so smart and knows how to play dead." Tada did not know how he flew back. He felt a pain in his chest, then his thigh and arm. He could not move anymore. Wan did not need to continue to give orders. She could not. She asked people to light torches and look at the person who almost succeeded in the sneak attack. "I'm not convinced. I am Tata. You can't kill me. I want to fight with your generals again." Tada did not hide his identity anymore. That way, he would die faster. The life of a soldier was not worth anything. He still wanted to fight with the two kids. Zhang Xiaobao and Wan were stunned. They did not expect to catch a big fish. They looked at the person in front of them carefully. Zhang Xiaobao shook his head and said, "No wonder you always lose. You don't even know how to put on makeup. Look at your clothes. They are too small. You don't need to fight with your current appearance. You are lucky today. There is no poison on the arrow. Otherwise, you would have died." Chapter 628. A heavy rain fell, as if it wanted to wash away all the blood in the world. It continued to rain until the evening of the same day, and it showed no signs of stopping. The Tubo people still couldn't find the main force of the Tang army. Not to mention the main force, they couldn't even find the Tang army. All the provisions of the 3 troops were burned, and more than 5,000 horses were lost. When they were about to find Thu and ask him why the main force of the Tang army wasn't on the mountain, they sent someone back to report what happened that night. More than 3,000 of the 4,000 troops of Tadu were killed, and Tatatu was nowhere to be found. After this battle, more than 7,000 of the 20,000 troops of Tatatu were left. The people of the 3 troops were speechless. They thought that if they were still behind Tatatu at that time, Tata wouldn't have been killed by the enemy. If they were not the main force of the Tang army, who could they be if they were able to kill more than 1,000 of the 4,000 troops? More than 20,000 people had died in the hands of the Tang army. To be more precise, it was 23,000 people. Many people had died in the camp that was attacked yesterday. 15,000 Tang soldiers came in, but after being ambushed, there were only 12,000 left. Including the logistics troops, who did not have much fighting power from the beginning until now, these people had killed more than 20,000 people on his side. The main force of the Tang army didn't seem to be affected at all. They were still able to fight and win. The news just came yesterday. It was said that the commander here had been confirmed. The girl of the 2 children was now 9 years old. Her name was Wang Wan, and those who were familiar with her called her Cuckoo. She was the daughter-in-law of the Idyll provincial governor. She was a very sensible girl. She was cute, pretty, and educated. It was said that she was the best at making wontons. Such a little girl of about 9 years old, took over the defeated Tang army and then fought against the army on his side. The distance she covered could be said to be thousands of miles. She schemed and set up ambushes everywhere. She was invincible and invincible. According to the art of war, she was as swift as the wind, as slow as the forest, as fierce as the fire, as immovable as the mountain, as unpredictable as the shadow, and as swift as the thunder. When did the Tang army have such a person? When did the great Tang become accustomed to letting a child lead its army? These did not seem to be important anymore. What was important was that the main force of the Tang army was still there, and they were still as ruthless as before. No matter how hard they searched, they were still nowhere to be found. The Tubo generals had already lost their temper from the beating, but they had no choice but to fight. She had already released the news that she was just a child, and she was the one who killed them until their blood flowed like a river. If they couldn't even deal with a child, what kind of country would they have? As a result, more troops were mobilized, and the Iron Cavalry took up their positions. So many people, so powerful, all for the sake of defeating a 9-year-old girl, Cuckoo, a very nice name. Recently, the officials of Pengzhou no longer placed their official duties as their top priority. All they thought about every day was how many Tibetans had been killed by the logistics battalion. A few days ago, Idyll had already delivered the latest news to Pengzhou. When the officials of Pengzhou saw the battle report, they were speechless. The person had been confirmed. She was Zhang Zhong's daughter-in-law. She had led her people to defeat the Tibetans again and again. The evidence was the item on Idyll's body. Now, no one doubted anything. They only hoped that this genius general could continue to kill for the Great Tang. The news quickly spread to the surrounding areas. When the wealthy families heard about it, they wanted to work hard to have daughters so that they could be like Wang Wan and lead troops in a battle. It could be said that they were both men and women who had been reborn. Of course, no one knew that this was what they thought. They also didn't know that this sentence only appeared when the Great Tang was in danger. The people of Idyll also received the news. Zhang Zhong was so excited that he didn't know what to do. He didn't expect that not only were his son and daughter-in-law fine, but they were also hiding under the eyes of the enemy. The army that they led didn't lose too many people and still had the strength to fight. Zhang Wang clan and the people of the Wang family were also glowing, especially Wang Wan's father. In the past, he always felt a little inferior. Although his daughter was powerful, The one in charge was his son-in-law. He followed the Zhang family everywhere and wanted to do something to prove himself. However, he never had the chance. Now, the chance had come. Did you see it? Did you see it? The daughter of the Wang family is not just a decoration. The child of the Wang family is also powerful and can fight. Who can? Who in the world can have a 9-year-old daughter like this? In his joy, he dragged the people from the various strongholds to drink as much as he could. At the table, he kept talking about how he felt when his daughter was born and how he felt now that his daughter was born. He was right. Even if the chief of the stronghold didn't want to listen to his boasting, he had to bear with it. He knew that he wasn't boasting. His daughter had done it. Old Man Pai and the other two gathered again. They looked at the news and didn't speak for a long time. After a while, Old Man Chang said, "Look, it's not wrong. It's the two children who are commanding, and it's Cuckoo." Did an expert teach the two children different skills? This time, the Zhang family and the Wang family's momentum has been established. In the future, ordinary people won't dare to provoke them. If they can compete in civil and martial arts, who could be a match for them? Old Man Pai didn't expect Cuckoo, who always smiled when she talked, to have such ability. In the past, when he was with Xiao Bao and Cuckoo, he mostly looked at Xiao Bao. Cuckoo always stood behind Xiao Bao. One was to support him silently, while the other was to protect Cuckoo at all times. But when it came to fighting, Cuckoo automatically stood in front, while Xiao Bao ran behind Cuckoo to support her. All the logistics were done by Xiao Bao. How were they still two children? Many adults couldn't do this. When one appeared, the other immediately hid. One was in the light, one was in the dark. What would happen when this pair of children grew up? Yes, they didn't need to grow up. They could do it now. If they were given a chance, they would definitely grab it. It seemed that he didn't make the wrong choice and help the right people. In the future, the Tang Empire would be handed over to them. Thinking of this, Old Man Pai sighed and said, "I hope Cuckoo comes back soon. If she's surrounded there and something happens, it'll be a loss for our dynasty. If there's no other way, we'll force Pengzhou to send troops. Aren't there many people who want to join the army now?" Old Man Yao tried his best to control himself and not let himself get too excited. His body had always been weak and needed to rest. He was afraid that he would get too excited when something happened. He, who had been the prime minister many times, had trained himself to not be shocked by honor or disgrace. But when faced with such a situation, he couldn't treat it with the same attitude as before. Xiao Bao was only a little over 9 years old, but he was able to arrange the logistics so well that the soldiers in front didn't have to worry about the rear. Cuckoo was also a little over 9 years old. She was born in the same year, same month, and same day as Xiao Bao. She was able to lead the soldiers to contend with the strong enemies of Tubo and not be defeated. Even if she was 10 years older, 3 years older, at least there would be a 12-year-old prime minister, right? But the two children just had to be exposed at such a young age. They couldn't even hide it. Perhaps it was because they had been hiding it again and again. Yao Cheng was really frightened. He had never heard of such a thing. He thought that Tubo must be feeling even worse. So many generals were being toyed with by a 9-year-old girl. Wouldn't they go crazy? All right, now Tubo's days weren't going to be good. They had mobilized so many soldiers, and even the steel cavalry had to come out. The steel cavalry was the troop that protected Tubo's capital. How much did they have to force Tubo's people to do this? All of the mobilizing of the army was money, and they had profited. With the current dynasty's small military force and the money from the Zhang family and Wang family to organize the logistics, they had dragged Tubo into mobilizing so much financial, material, and manpower. After taking a few deep breaths, Old Man Yao gradually calmed down and said, "I think that should be the case. Let Pengzhou mobilize the army. Right now, the people there all want to join the army and serve our dynasty. This is all because of Cuckoo. If a little girl can do it, how could those grown men not be able to do it? Even if they don't mobilize the army, they have to act like they're going to attack and cooperate with Cuckoo. Otherwise, Cuckoo won't have it easy. If Cuckoo and Xiao Bao are gone, what kind of situation will that be? If that's really the case, I'm willing to exchange my old life for it. I've lived for so long, and I've lived long enough. Nothing must happen to Cuckoo and Xiao Bao. Old Man Chong was the most direct and immediately expressed his position. Old Man Pai didn't say anything, but from the expression on his face, he was willing to exchange his life for it. Just as they were discussing whether or not they should use their status to force Pingzhou to make a move, the imperial edict from the capital arrived. It was specifically for Old Man Yao and Old Man Pai, telling them to fully cooperate with Zhang Zhong in Idyll. At the same time, another imperial edict was sent to Pingzhou, ordering Pingzhou to make preparations to attack. Just as the others were making their moves, Wang Wan began the next step of her plan. She placed a team of nearly 4,000 people on the mountain. She and Xiao Bao personally led 3,000 light cavalrymen to cause trouble for Tubo. After the rain stopped, the road was difficult to travel. Perhaps all the generals were unwilling to attack the enemy under such circumstances, but Wang Wan was an exception. The things she learned didn't care about the influence of the weather. In the past, the troops she commanded were all-weather combat troops. To others, this kind of weather was unbearable, but to her, it was an opportunity. So what if the ground was muddy? If her side was muddy, so were the others. Whoever could take advantage of the terrain would be able to win. In addition, with the help of clouds and binoculars, Wang Wan was confident that she could fight Tubo again in this kind of environment. She would make them tremble when they saw her in the future. The 3,000 light cavalrymen set off with 5 days' worth of food and a large number of arrows. Their target was the 3 troops that had just gathered to 7,000 people. Chapter 629. Bows and crossbows are hidden, saddles and horses are hung. Hooves are torrential, angrily trampling Jin Chuan. Life is on the blade, soul is on the bottom, arrows are like a storm, wind is like a storm. Ask the enemy if they are afraid. Their bodies are in the yellow sand, blood is spilled. Looking at the Jiang Qinghua pagoda from afar, he sneered and flicked his hair. Perhaps it was because of the rain, but Kamuk had been in a bad mood for the past 2 days. Looking at the sky that was not completely clear after the rain, she always felt a chilly wind blowing, even if it was in the tent. In fact, he knew what he was worried about. He was afraid that he would follow in the footsteps of Tateto. 20,000 people against 7,000 people. It did not seem to be a lot, but the other side only had a little more than 10,000 people. At that time, the Tang army was still in low morale and did not have much rest. At this time, the Tang army's morale was so high that his own army could not compare with it. Moreover, they hid and rested for such a long time. It was true that the general was the courage of the soldiers. It was true that the same soldiers became different after changing the general. His own army also had 20,000 people, and the logistics department of 6,000 people sent out did not lose too many people. But why did he not dare to completely follow the order to launch a battle line to kill? Was he afraid? Was he afraid of a 9-year-old little girl? Kimu Kahu was not surprised that the other side killed so many people on his side with such a small number of people. The most powerful generals in history were even more powerful than this. He could not understand how a 9-year-old girl could be like those famous generals. If she was on his side, he would feel that the little girl fought a battle pleasing to the eye, but she was not on his side. Reporting, General, the scouts of the 1st and 2nd teams of the Wind Cavalry encountered the enemy and retreated. Only 21 people out of 300 escaped. Just as Camus and Ku, who were thinking about how to follow the order without losing too many soldiers, a messenger ran in from outside the tent and reported to them. Kimu Kahu did not seem to have any reaction after hearing it. He looked at the scenery outside the tent motionlessly. The messenger did not dare to disturb him and stood aside to wait. After a while, Kimu Kahu said, "No wonder I always felt a gust of cold wind. It turned out that I was targeted. It seems that the Tang army is ready to attack my army. Well, tell me, what kind of enemy did the 1st and 2nd teams of the Wind Cavalry encounter?" Reporting, the brothers who came back said that they encountered about 3,000 Tang soldiers. They were lightly armored, and their arrows were like flying locusts. When they came face to face, a large number of brothers around fell. Fortunately, The road was muddy, so they managed to escape. The messenger was also worried. He was afraid of encountering the main force of the Tang army and that little girl. Camus and Kuhu began to ponder and muttered, 3,000 light cavalry. This means that they are the ones who ambushed the logistics. The main force of the Tang army is still on the mountain. Mud is good. The messenger listened attentively. He didn't know what to do with the mud, so he could only wait for the general's order. Pass down my order. The 6,000 men of the 8 battalions that were sent to reinforce Tadagarito are to return immediately. The 6 battalions will split into 6 groups and spread out the distance between each other. We will search as we return. Gather all of our cavalrymen. Equip them with light armor and crossbows. Wait for orders. Find Sang Chi-Chi. Kamuka, who originally did not want to let the headquarters go up, but now that the enemy had their eyes on them, they had no choice but to go up, even if they knew who would be at a disadvantage. After the messenger left, Kamuku, who laughed sinisterly and muttered to himself, "Little girl, this time I'll let you know that not everyone can let you come and go as you please." Wang Wan, who had defeated nearly 300 Tufan soldiers, led her troops and left. She ran into a forest and started to get busy. Shui Yun flew down and told Zhang Yingshan news on the mountain. She then flew away and continued to monitor the situation on the mountain. She also sent an order. Zhang Xiaobao took out the small pot on his back and lit the fire. He was busy making food for Wang Wan. He was only making food for her. Fighting a war was also very mentally taxing. She had to replenish her nutrients. He poured oil and slowly boiled the sugar. After a while, the sugar changed color and the fragrance floated out. The surrounding soldiers who were looking at them inhaled the fragrance. However, no one came forward. No one wanted to share the food. This was a meal for the general so that he could lead them to victory. Zhang Xiaobao took out pepper and a few other seasonings and stir-fried them in the pot. He looked at the cut meat at the side and sighed. "AI, it's not easy to get some pork here. I'll just make do with the wild pork. I've already marinated it with white pepper, starch, and wine. The fragrant red braised meat needs to be cooked slowly. It will only taste good after 2 hours." Wang Wan leaned against a tree and rested while thinking about what the enemy would do. Occasionally, she would look at Xiao Bao, who was making the red braised meat for her. She revealed a happy smile. During this period of time, Xiao Bao had taken the time to make good food for her. He would do whatever he was told to do. He never felt that he shouldn't listen to a woman just because he was a man. The surrounding soldiers were also envious of General Wang. Although men didn't cook much, the little young master's food was really delicious. Just by smelling it, it was fragrant. When they heard the people from the logistics camp calling him, it seemed that the little young master had a higher status at home. They didn't expect that he would not fight for power with General Wang and would do whatever he was told to do. This kind of man was not easy to find. Yes, a woman like General Wang was also not easy to find. When the little young master was at home, would he be bullied by General Wang, who could command him? As everyone was thinking, one person unconsciously said it. Zhang Xiaobao was watching the fire. When he heard this person, he turned his head and asked, "You haven't married yet?" This person was shocked and thought that he was doomed. Why didn't he guard his mouth and let the little young master hear it? He quickly shook his head and replied, "No, my family is poor. I can't talk about a wife." "Oh, don't be afraid of being poor. We are poor, but we are not poor. You fought with your life in Tubo. When you go back, you won't be poor anymore. For those who fought with my little madam, if they died, their families would double the compensation. If they were alive, they would also receive a large amount of money. When the time comes, I will help you find a wife. You have to work hard," Zhang Xiaobao said gently to this person. Okay. When this person thought that he would have a wife in the future, he immediately felt embarrassed. He lowered his head and blushed. But in his heart, he felt that something was wrong. He had clearly offended the little young master. Why would the little young master be kind enough to find a wife for him? Zhang Xiaobao did not expose him. He looked at this person carefully and remembered this person. If this person could really go back alive, he would find a wife for him, the kind that was good at fighting. Let's see if this person would still badmouth him. Another person at the side joined in and said to Zhang Xiaobao, Little young master, I already have a wife at home. I don't know if I can get a concubine when I go back. My cooking is not good at all. I don't care if you get a concubine. If you have the ability, you can get one yourself. I will teach you how to sing a song, okay? Zhang Xiaobao looked at this person and said, Okay. I will sing and you will remember. Maybe I will say goodbye. Won't come back again, do you understand? Do you understand? Maybe I'll fall down and never rise again. Do you still want to wait forever? Zhang Xiaobao sang the song with a slightly altered melody to the man, and the people around him also listened. Little young master, I thought about it and decided not to find a concubine. The one at home makes clothes that fit me very well. Everyone in the village praises her. They also say that I am very lucky. I won't marry. If you don't marry, then rest. You still have to kill enemies. Dignity needs to be exchanged with blood. After Zhang Xiaobao finished speaking, he added some firewood under the pot. He turned around and went to Wang Wan. He squatted down and massaged Wang Wan's head. At this time, Wang Wan was almost done thinking. While enjoying Zhang Xiaobao's massage, she said to Zhang Xiaobao, Xiaobao, you sang really well just now. Why don't I change the military songs that I learned before and teach them? It can also improve their morale. Okay, but the premise is that you have to make more money so that you can give enough money to support the army. In the end, the Tang dynasty couldn't raise an army and there was chaos. The soldiers listened to who is who. Let's give the money to Xiao Li and let him take it out. Then the army will listen to him. I like him more. He is very tough when dealing with the outside world. If we follow him, we can fight a few more wars. In the future, your family will eventually be separated. You can't always follow my family. You need to build your own family. By the time Zhang Xiaobao finished cooking the red braised pork, everyone had rested enough. Wang Wan had a good meal and ordered the 3rd Cavalry Battalion, Light Cavalry, 1st Battalion, 1st Battalion, 1st Battalion, 2nd Battalion, 1st 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 Battalion. 1st Battalion, 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 3rd Battalion, 1st 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 Battalion. 1st Battalion, 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 that you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.